Well, Happy New Year, folks. Happy New Year. Happy 2025. It's great to be alive. We're back. We're Underhive Lorekeepers. We are doing recording. Happy New Year.
No, enough. This is not about you.
Oh, so we're taking away the positivity of the year already.
Positivity
Great.
is gone straight away.
Are you positive about that?
Oh, I'm very positive.
Oh, so you're bringing some back. That's nice.
Yes. I need a big breath for this one.
Oh, okay. I got a clicky pen.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'm calling out to spirers, underhivers, and sump sea divers. I don't care if you're ratskins, nomads, do not haves, or never hads. Scavies, scalies, muties, abhumans, xenos, and even the French Canadian. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Underhive Lorekeepers podcast, the first of 2025. As always, I am your host, the Midnight Man, the Golden Skinned, the Keeper of Lore, the Teller of Tales, the King of the Ratty Boys, the 20-time Best Sports winner, chosen voice of the people.
Idiot.
Beloved by his allies, feared by his enemies, the Vunda from down under. The super freak of the Necromunda world, the glorious Spaniel.
So
Hold the cheers and applause there, listeners, for I am not alone. I am joined once again to my right. It's Nathan. How are you, buddy?
Are you open for points? I'm good, by the way, to answer your question. I am good.
No, there will be no points.
There will be. Firstly, and only the real point from this, the Wanda from down under, which implies
The Vunda from down under.
the Vanda from down under, which implies you are Australian, which everybody knows that you're not. You smuggled yourself across from the land of the great white sheep, and you like to pretend that you are somewhat Aussie cool, but instead you're nerdy Kiwi.
So it's weird because a lot of people have picked up on that. Several people on various Discords like to be like, "Shut up! You're not even a real Australian." I'm like, "Oh, thank you."
And
but
do you know what I say to those people? Respect your commitment to this show and your ability to interact with us at that meta level is fantastic. And I forward your responses and I champion your responses. Sorry.
Well, that is enough from you because we do like to keep our openings tight here. And I actually used a lot of our allocation for our opening, introducing myself. But
Great.
I feel we received the necessary amount of information about the two of us. You know, I'm the Midnight Man, the Golden Skinned, but the chosen voice of the people, the Keeper of Lore, singer of songs, defender of that which is righteous. That will be added to the next opening. And then you're Nathan. So,
And that's all that's needed.
That was all that was needed.
That is all that is needed. Do you know, when people remember Cetra, they don't remember all the names, they just remember Cetra. So when people remember Nathan, they think the Nathan.
Okay, when people think of Nathan, they think of that Bretonian with the frog on a stick.
Is he Nathan?
That's what I think of when I think of you.
Oh, because I painted that miniature for you many years ago and gave it to you.
Because you put a frog on a stick. But no, scummers, we're back. We're
back.
We went on holiday and we took time off everything, and then we did a bunch of videos, and
Yeah, we did. We did have people call us out for. I thought you guys were taking time off. Sorry for providing additional content for you. We have failed so desperately in our ability to have time off.
We have.
Our
We
apologies.
did really badly. Yeah.
We did, actually. We really, really did. But the video content was cool. And it definitely is not going to impact on our I guess, podcast content, which I think is probably going to improve with the aid of the video stuff. But that's people will see that. You'll see that develop over this year, which is both myself and Sam are really, really excited for. Actually, we've probably talked about the podcast every day since we went on break. I'd say I don't think there'd be a period of 36 hours that went by without us talking or messaging something that we are doing with this. So, yeah, excited to be back. Can't wait. For those who have been listening to our Patreon, the Hobby Diary, we've set ourselves some really big hobby goals this year. Nothing unobtainable, but just, consistency, I think, is the key this year. So I can't wait to start doing that. And just, the other thing for me with regard to the podcast is that we've knocked off all the primary gangs. So now we get to start to dabble in a little bit of the obscure, a little bit of the, less recognised. And one of those is going to be the squats, which from what I know of that book, I'm surprised I'm saying this. I cannot wait to have a good solid read of it because
I cannot wait till it's released here.
I
cannot wait till it's released here.
It opens up a whole vault of history for us that we have not touched upon with Necromunda. So, that's just going to get the brain cells firing and all these ideas. But without further ado, I guess we better go through a few of the pre-episode requirements.
Of which I've forgotten to do. So I know people sent me corrections. I don't remember where I put them. So this is not my fault. So there have been no corrections since we did anything. And I suppose we can just jump straight to
Do you know what?
our new Patreon.
Let me just say something here, and I've already talked a fair bit already, but you did steal most of our intro. So for those of you who are, impressed with our professionalism, don't you think that's going to slip with our ability or inability to conjure up any corrections, even though they were sent through to us? That doesn't mean that we have lacked or are lacking in our professionalism. We are forging forward, folks. We are going to be that super professional. What's the famous podcaster guy?
Joe Rogan.
Joe Rogan style show that you know and love. Yes?
Okay, but in my defense...
Yes.
Shut up.
There it is, folks. That's our professionalism.
Professional, but also tight.
Tight opening. So, let us get to our beloved new Patreons. Yay! I'll just reel off this is our first list for 2025. It's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited.
In fact...
Yes.
Go.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's that professionalism. Tight opening.
Yep.
We have Tad Mercer, Jimmy Marshall, actual Black Templar, Felipe Sampson, Warhammer in the Dark, which is a brand new Carry Club member. Yay! Woohoo! Thank you so much. Warhammer in the Dark, however, difficult to do. From Underscare Somewhere.
You say that, or is that just a lack of skill?
Do you know what? I'm going to take that on board as a lack of skill. From _somewhere, Alistair Z, Alfonso the Traitor, which I don't know what it is. I think he's going to turn on the podcast. I don't know what it is.
I swear that I have screwed this up and we read him out last episode, or he joined us and was like, I love these guys, and he's like, no, screw these guys, stab, 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 left, and has come back.
I want to go with the second story. It just has a little bit more flesh on the bones there. Simon Westlake, Maddie, Moore Skull, clearly a Cornwall, Alex, and Clayton. Now, one of those people on that list has admitted and shown some rather provocative Slaanesh worshipping photos, but we're not going to say who.
It was Warhammer in the Dark. He is a sicko. He's quickly becoming one of my favourite people to talk to. He's another electrician. And so we talk about like volts and watts and real smart stuff. We don't talk about like drilling holes or anything. But yes, no, he is a twisted individual.
So what do you talk about?
Well, megawatts. That's what.
What? What? I could run this watt joke forever.
But if you do enjoy the show and our electrician jokes, and you are interested in supporting the podcast, please shoot over to patreon.com/the Underhive Lorekeepers podcast. We are 100% funded by the goodwill of our audience, though we do this for the love of our hobby. Each month we have a Patreon exclusive episode, as well as competitions, polls on episodes, and other bonus content. And if you are looking for another way to support us, get onto our social media, Instagram, Facebook, and obviously our YouTube. We're starting to do a bit of video content as well. A like, comment, subscribe, share. I don't know what else. How else you
What do you
talk
do
about
on YouTube? Somebody told us the other day.
share, and subscribe. Comment, like, and follow. Just do all of them. Comment, like, follow, subscribe. Take your families and friends' phones and do all that as well. It helps us grow and get our particular brand of lore and electricity-themed humour out into the world. All of our links will be in the show notes. And don't forget to give us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform.
Yeah, just a highlight to those 5 stars. We always talk about them. They are one of the super key ways that people find us naturally. So, people start looking for Necromunda content and they're going to see the 5-star rated show. So, if you haven't already done it, please do it. And you have a very heartfelt thank you from the show.
And Nathan will send you $5.
Do you know what? For the first 10 emails I get that show me a 5-star review they've done, I will like that email.
I was like, firstly, you don't check the emails. Don't do this.
I've checked them sometimes.
I will create 5 email addresses and like each of them and get $50. Wait, $25. I'm an electrician.
I was going to say.
So,
Rightio.
Nathan, the episode. What are we talking about today?
Obstetricians.
Obstetricians.
Yes, OBGYNs. Yes?
OBGY.
What are we?
And you screwed up 2 of the letters there, buddy.
Ah. What are we talking about then?
Ogryns.
That's why.
No, Ogryns. Ogryns.
Obgins. The distant and not so popular cousin of the hobgoblin cross Ogryn. I don't know what kind of seduction happened there, but Horatio was definitely involved in that
Horatio
matchmaking.
Valentino was all about it.
How do you find a hobgoblin? Anyway, no, tight. We are talking about Ogryns.
Ogryns.
Ogres. Are they ogres? No, they're not ogres. They're just Ogryns, yes.
Yeah, we are talking about the biggest and goodest of boys of the abhuman world. We are talking about Ogryns. Now, this episode wasn't supposed to happen for quite a while. And is it the Lemony Snicket series? A series of unfortunate events?
There's a series, yes, but there's what's his name? What's his face did it? Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey did the movie. Yeah, from what I remember. But the movie
Lemony Snicket.
Yeah, the movie got canned. I don't think that was very well received, but the series was well liked.
Okay, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, so why'd you ask? Oh, well, you asked because you don't know anything about it.
But I know a series of unfortunate events. The Ogryn episode has come across because of a series of super weirdly timed events. Now, the first being the release of the brand new podcast by our mate Simon, for Three Ogryn in a Trench Coat, who is now actively doing a podcast on his second best guides. Now, any of you who remember the episode we did interviewing him and talking about his sort of mission over there at Second Best Guides, you'd know he wanted to bring the sort of tactical acumen that you were getting for the house gangs and the regular gangs and all that sort of stuff to those gangs that you're not necessarily getting a lot of focus on. And his first episode was on the Ogryn, and it was fantastic. If you haven't listened to it, Simon and Andrew are awesome. They are so similar to me and Nathan. They are just two mates talking about hobby, and it's awesome. If you like us, I reckon you'll like them. So please go and listen to them. And then Games Workshop released the Apocrypha Necromunda on Abhumans, with a side helping of Venators. And we did our video review on that, and hot damn, the Ogryn and Beastmen and Rattling and Squat love on Instagram and the internet and all that sort of stuff when it comes to Necromunda has just exploded. It's awesome. And then,
phenomenal amount of ideas being created from that gang list, but the Ogryns were definitely the ones who seemed to be drawing a lot of love. Like the Beastmen were definitely right up there, but the Ogryns, I just felt like there was so much info coming to us about, like, I'm going to build an Ogryn gang like this and so forth and so forth. And I guess that list gave you the freedom, but that highlights the fact that the planets were aligning for the best boys.
Oh, and then I think yesterday or the day before, Second Best Guides released another episode on Ogryns. And I listened to it, and I've got this bee in my bonnet, and I just want to talk about them. Like, none of you can see me because we're not video recording this episode, but I'm like jittery. I'm so excited because I've gotten so many ideas from Second Best Guides and the Venator supplement, and the just rereading over the House of Chains and Ogryn content there, and rereading through every old Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum codex that I have, and yeah, I just want to talk about Ogryn. So, firstly, Simon, thank you for inspiring this episode. Secondly, we were supposed to have you on this episode. We did it a few months from now. That's Nathan's fault. He wouldn't get up at 4 o'clock on a Sunday morning to record this episode.
Rightly so. No. You said it was for a good reason, and then you told me the reason. I was like, oh, no, I'm not that keen. But look, I mean, I don't think it's a negative thing to have a bombardment of Ogryn episodes. I think
it is not.
If you are Ogryn inclined, you are going through your golden period right now. If you're not Ogryn inclined, well, guess what? You're going to learn what you hate the most.
You're going to learn to love.
Yeah. You're going to learn loads about them. Speaking of, let's get into our first read then.
Beautiful.
The Ogryn, or otherwise known as the obstetrician, Homo sapienus gigantus, are huge and physically powerful abhuman mutant subspecies of humanity, often employed by the Imperium of Man as shock troops in the Astra Militarum Auxilia.
It's the guard, son.
It's the guard, boy. What are you talking about? None of this Militarum stuff. Ogryns possess many traits prized by the Imperium. They are brutally strong and completely loyal, although extremely limited intellectually, which restricts their battlefield role to simple and direct assaults. These have always been a favourite of mine, Ogryns, actually, from playing them in 2nd edition. So I've got the old school Ogryns with the ripper guns, with the like belt-fed drum sort of thing.
Yes.
The
big
horns on the
jaws.
helmet. The big jaws.
The big jaws.
And the stupidly oversized nose.
Yep.
This absolute mama jummer of a nose on them. And I love them. And I got them in the idea of having them attached to my Catachan force, because I was like, they're big and muscly. The Catachans are big and muscly. That makes sense. Then I switched over to Valhallans, but I never got rid of the Ogryns, because I love those miniatures. I still use them today. They're still part of my guard army. And yeah, they're just fantastic looking miniatures. But on top of that, exactly what that first read says, I used to use them to just smash through the lines. And they, like, I use them as a proper guard commander would. They got thrown in there, and whatever survived. Good on you, lads. You'll get an extra shiny helmet. But generally speaking, they died. They just died so horribly.
That's that Imperial speciesism that you seem to love.
Do you know, I must have had it from a very young age, because my poor rattling snipers and my Ogryns in my guard army were always taking the brunt end of things. I remember setting up rattling snipers in an infiltrating position that I was just like, I literally said to my opponent, they're a speed hump. Do what you will.
Yours was the only rattling close combat unit in the history of the guard.
Mind you, completely against their will.
The rat zerkers.
Yeah, it's like, boss, we don't want to. Oh, I don't think you understand. I don't care. Here's a tiny little chainsword. Actually, I saw a slight distraction from our episode. I saw a chainsword we didn't talk about in our weapons episode, and it is a chainsword that is attached to the medic from the Scions. So it's attached to his little las pistol. It's freaking cool.
No, yeah, the chain bayonets. We talked about them.
No, but it's even smaller than a bayonet. It's just like attached. It's attached to a las pistol.
What?
Yeah, it's so cool. That's what I see the rattlings being equipped with. Do you know? Oh, look. Anyway, I'll get back to the Ogryns. I was about to say I'd love to see Ogryns with chainswords, but yeah. Look, from I guess even from the pre-heresy days, is where you see the Ogryns being enlisted and in part of the Imperial Army, or what were they, the Solar Auxilia back then, and then you have them as part of the Imperial Guard, now Astra Militarum and so forth. They are the unit that takes the pressure off Rough Riders. They are the unit that takes the pressure off assaulting formations. You know what I mean?
They, in my mind, from that there, it literally says, they are shock troopers. They are that old school rogue trader mindset where, yeah, we get it. They're part of the, and in big quotation marks, sorry, they're part of the Imperium. But because they're not humans, they don't really matter. This goes back to Beastmen. This goes back to the, Gland Warriors and all that sort of stuff where they were sitting there going, yeah, you're human, but you're not human, you're abhuman. So your role is to fight and bleed and die for the sake of humanity.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're very, very disposable.
My Ogryns, weirdly enough, were the only part of my Imperial Guard armies that somehow survived, because I played Imperial Guard the same way I played Chaos Space Marines, was charge everything forward, and then I would use the greatest orders known to man in the history of all of the Imperium of mankind. First rank fire, second rank fire. And that was my tactic. Charge Ogryn, first rank fire, second rank fire. That's it. But my Ogryns would always somehow survive, and my guardsmen would all be wiped out to a man.
Yeah, right. No, I was definitely opposite camp, which, as I guess we've well discovered over the course of this podcast, my hatred for anything non-human was probably something subconscious. I was just like, there's one left. Yes, let's go charge Khan. So I guess from a an idea of where they fit into the matrix. They become this tactical and flexible unit that humanity sees as, okay, we can still use this.
Yeah.
Where, like the rattlings. And when I say tactical in the sense of, well, we can't throw humans into that particular fight. They are going to get mauled and destroyed, and we will keep doing it, and we will keep getting mauled and destroyed. We need something bigger and nastier. We don't have space marines to aid us. We don't have like combat walkers. We've got sentinels and but they're not really designed for close combat.
Yep.
Where is our bridge? And our bridge is the Ogryn, and you see that in the Solar Auxilia with the Charonite.
The Charonite Ogryns, yes.
Yeah, purely designed just to go punch a hole in things. And they do it. They do it very, very effectively. So that mindset and the mantra of humanity is that the big, burly, monstrous thing that gets sent into the most dangerous parts of the battlefield just to punch things.
Yeah, well, it all comes from sort of where they come from, the upbringing and sort of the evolution they've had over tens of thousands of years. So typically, Ogryn hail from a series of cold and barren planets across the galaxy that possess high gravity, such as Anarch Zeta, Monglor, and Krork, which is why they appear larger, heavier, and bulkier compared to baseline humans. Now, Ogryns compensate for their mental deficiencies with overwhelming physicality. The brutish creatures stand around 10 Terran feet, or 3 meters, or 1.5 fridges in freedom units tall, and can shrug off wounds that would kill an Imperial guardsman several times over. Now, these qualities mean that Ogryns make exceptional shock troopers and are often deployed on the front lines of battle by the Imperial commanders. So literally just reiterating what we've said there, like the places they come from, like these are Catachans, but bigger and badder. They are a worse version of Catachans.
Don't say it. I remember there's in a White Dwarf many, many moons ago, and it was like, Catachans hate being called baby Ogryns.
Yeah, they are baby Ogryns.
Oh, I hated that line, but I get it. But they basically are. But it's the planets that they hail from is what shapes these individuals. Just like the guard regiments, where they come from determines how they fight, their style of leadership, their style of warfare as well, and their mentality towards the enemy as well. That comes with the Ogryns as well. They are bred tough. They're bred strong.
Because you go back into some really old lore, and typically it was because a lot of the homeworlds of Ogryns, during mankind's expansion into the galaxy, they were mining worlds. They were prison colonies, that sort of thing there, and it was always something that I found weird, because they would talk about how Ogryns were these huge, strong, dumb creatures, implying that because they'd come from these prison colonies, and as the populations had interbred and they'd grown, criminals are dumb, so they're going to produce dumb offspring. But anytime I've gone to prison, I've met a lot of really smart people. That sort of mindset.
I wanted to see where you'd go with that. He's only ever been as a visitor. He does like the 50 cent thing, where this is for the audience, obviously you're not included in this cent.
Oh.
But he does that 50 cent thing where he's like, I was a gangster, I went to prison and so forth, but only as a visitor.
Didn't 50 Cent get shot like 5 times?
I thought didn't he claim that he went to prison and he never actually did or something?
I don't
know.
I have no idea.
Happy to be corrected on that one.
I'm not 50 Cent Lorekeepers.
No, that would be a fairly limited run show.
So I've just quickly looked it up. He was shot 9 times.
Oh, right. Yeah, okay. That's not very nice at all.
Yeah. No. He was shot 9 times. So,
like at the same time?
Yeah, like at the same time.
Wow, how did he survive that? Did he survive that?
He's actually an Ogryn. Shout out to 50 Cent. Someone I'm assuming is a listener.
Of course, yes.
But yeah, like, but also, whether or not that comes from reality or it's just more Imperial propaganda where they love to slander their own troops. They love to basically talk shit about their own parts of the Imperium that aren't necessarily human. You know, it's like squats, for example. Squats is a derogatory term. And, you know, ratlings, they call them stunties and all that sort of stuff. It's derogatory terms. And just like that, Ogryns have their own derogatory terms. They are called fats, flabs, slobs, and stenches. Interestingly enough, there has only been one instance of someone calling an Ogryn this to their face before they were crunched literally out of existence.
Yeah, but the Ogryn would have to have that explained to them first. So
yes, by a catachan.
By a catachan. See how he called you a stencher?
They're the middle ground.
I high-fived him. Yeah,
humans, catachans, Ogryns.
So the catachans are actually the translators for the Ogryns?
Yes.
Yeah. But it's all hand signals, you know? Just like, do you know when in baseball when they give the hand signals? It's kind of like that. It's their own language of, like, secret codes, but not like Auslan or anything like that, but more like...
It's like the Goliath, how they communicate with, like, slaps and grunts and that sort of thing.
Yeah. It would be exactly that. And then they'd kill the person and call them a stencher.
Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, right. All right. The Ogryns are the toughest and largest soldiers commonly used by the regiments of the Astra Militarum, originating from cold, barren, high-gravity prison planets settled many millennia before the founding of the Imperium.
Literally what we just talked about. Sorry.
What we just talked about. No, it's all good. That's you know, we're doing this in the style of Ogryn. So, you know, just talk, and then go, oh, there's the readings.
Yep.
The Ogryns' distant ancestors were once normal baseline humans during the Age of Technology. Thousands of standard years in the harsh terrains and brutal living conditions of their prison worlds after the start of the Age of Strife caused the fall of the first interstellar civilization of mankind, forced their ancestors' bodies to adapt to the hostile environment by growing in size and strength, though at the cost of intellectual development. This is really cool. Like, don't worry about the fall of the civilizations and all that kind of stuff. But there would still be existing histories. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, because they've lost their intelligence, doesn't mean that they would simply destroy their old histories. You know, they wouldn't just go, tiny person on DataScript doesn't make sense, crush. They would just, I think they would disregard it more so than they would get rid of it. Does that make sense? So they would just go, oh yeah, that's old dusty rubbish. We don't care about that. And some, you know, sticky-nosed inquisitor comes along and goes, oh, what exactly is this? And that's how I imagine they would have found where the origins of the Ogryns came from.
Well,
so
it also could be as the sort of, as we reclaim planets, you know, during the Crusade and that sort of thing. Obviously, we were finding Ogryns at that point. But as sort of mankind's expansion happens and goes out, it's you seen the original Planet of the Apes? You know, maniacs, you blew it up when he finds the Statue of Liberty. I can imagine it would be something like that. Like as you know, as these planets have continued through time, and the Ogryns themselves have gone from being people to catachans to like real Ogryns. I'm not imagining them demolishing the cities and the prisons and that sort of stuff. I'm imagining equipment stopping working, and you will have these husks of cities where the Ogryns don't know what it is. It's always been there. It's no different to a tree or a rock or a 7-Eleven. Like, they look at it all and they're just like, okay, it is what it is. But then when mankind comes there and they look at it and they go, wow, we can read that it literally says, you know, what was one of the planets before? The Krork Industrial Prison Facility. Like, we know this was a prison and these people would have evolved because of the high gravity and difficult climates into these larger, stronger things. So that's I think that's how they would find it, or they'd find these cogitators and data banks and data crystals and that sort of thing. And they'd be able to read the information and be like, this is literally a timeline of what happened as people got dumber and they were unable to sort of maintain everything. It's just degraded and they've gone feral. And that's
totally. I could, and that's what I envisaged, the Imperium coming down and being able to map out a timeline. But just as you're talking there, like how there was this sort of period of, I guess, de-evolution, we'll call it, but intellectual de-evolution, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There would be a period of time of a crossover where you would have people who are seeing their cities and seeing their civilization just becoming more and more filled with Ogryn style individuals.
Yes.
You know, so they're saying, you know, we can't make the materials that we need, or sorry, we can't manufacture the items that we need through the STC, because the next generation of people that were born on this planet, they're just not picking it up. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So where we would normally be able to move on and have them in these areas and we move to different positions, we're going to stay in these positions. So you begin to have individuals who aren't changing their role, aren't moving away from what they thought they were able to by getting that next generation to come through and teaching them how to use the STC or how to use the equipment to manufacture Promethium or whatever the case might be, right? And so there you have this older generation just staying on the production line, staying on the machines. And they pray that the next generation that comes through is a little bit more intelligent. And then they start to get these, you know, these individuals who are ready to start working in the factories. And they can't teach them the most basic things of like how to even turn up on time without being goaded there, without having a handler. Yes. That just actually dawns on me. These civilizations, I reckon they would have at some point had groups of like, we'll call them like proto-Ogryn or Catachan, right? Where
I love how we've basically we're now just going by the assumption that Catachan, we're reinforcing the stereotype. We're bringing it back. Catachan are just Ogryns who aren't there yet.
They're
Ogryn Jews.
They haven't tried hard. Yeah, they're perfect Ogryn Jews. So I imagine these proto-Ogryn being led into factoriums and so forth by handlers who are with them the whole day.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And just making sure you press the green button. Never press the red button. Press the green button. 2 seconds later, you press the green button. Don't press the red one. You know what I mean? Like they can't remove the red button, but they have to just, you know, constantly monitor. And this would take a toll on that society. You know what I mean? They would begin to see more and more of their own civilization just degrade and fall apart around them.
Yep.
To the point where they just, you'd almost give up. You'd be like, there is no capacity for us to go forward with the generation that's coming next. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
and I'm sorry to been going on a bit, but no. I'm suggesting you've got like let's say an individual who's got like, you know, regen treatments and what is it? Commissar Yarrick had. He had
one eye.
Like it's like no, he did have one eye, but he had
Power
like
Claw.
Pretty much pardon?
Power Claw.
Thank you very much. This is great. He also had
an orc best friend.
He actually did, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did have an orc best friend. It was one of those relationships where he's like, I don't want you to be my best friend.
Frenemies.
Bad luck. I'm your best friend. But no, I know in the lore he had like
a bad fight with Ogryn.
Oh my god. He had
rejuvenate treatments.
Yes, exactly.
Why don't you just say that? He had the rejuvenate thing, but he was one of the few instances where he could keep doing it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that you would have people on these planets who would have had that done to them, and they would see the first generation of Ogryns come through, then the next generation.
Yeah.
And so they could possibly see up to 4 generations of individuals that they're like, wow, we're not seeing a change. You know, the birth rates are still maintaining as they are, but the and it's such a horrible way to put it, but the quality of births is not ideal. Do you know what I mean?
No, every Ogryn birth is basically that, like, you know, that baby that came out that was the size of an adult Rottweiler.
Yeah. But look, I don't imagine this happening like overnight. Like you don't have like your modern day Ogryn existing within the space of one generation.
No, this is over thousands of years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is there would have been people around who would have been able to begin to see the breakdown.
Oh yeah,
And they're like, we're not on a pathway, and they'll never see how bad it gets, but they'll certainly see that first footstep, that first foray into the planet's future, and it is not a pretty sight.
Yeah, it's like when your child says that he really likes the elder. But anyway, speaking of sort of the devolution of society, a lot of that would start, like you said, with intelligence. And Ogryns are said to be even less intelligent than some orcs. However, the truth is that their intellects did not actually atrophy, but became much more focused on matters such as survival. And the genes that enable psychic abilities are unknown among Ogryn as a result. Now, this is something I wanted to say, despite the fact we know it is not true. We will talk about the instances of Ogryn psyches later on, but Ogryn psyches is something that just tickles me in all the right ways.
Absolutely. I love the idea. We spoke about it on, I believe, a Dramatis Personae.
Yeah, the Awakened Ogryn and...
the Awakened Ogryn, yes.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that in the Patreon, please get across and listen to it, because me and Sam actually had quite a bit of fun with that. But the basic idea is that it's a highly, highly confused Ogryn who's just like, what's happening? Okay.
I'm now picturing all of its psychic powers to be basically Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern, where he's like, Ogryn's just like, need to smash man there, and it's just this giant fist. But
just manifests his idea of like,
giant fist.
I want to get closer. Yeah, pretty much like a foot of Gork. Yeah, right. That's brilliant. I love that. That's really, really cool.
Despite the lack of apparent intellect in Ogryns, the Imperium puts the Ogryns' qualities to good use. Their strength and lack of intellectual complexity make them ideal warriors for the Imperial Guard. The concentration of the Ogryns' brutal power creates formidable assault forces. Once introduced to the Imperial cult, Ogryns develop an unshakable and almost childlike faith in the Emperor, seeing him as watching over their every action on the battlefield. Each order they receive is viewed as having worked its way down the hierarchy from the Emperor and is followed without question to the best of their ability. I want to raise 2 points from this.
Go ahead.
One, it's ridiculous how many ideas I get from just that, because think of all the different things that can be introduced to an Ogryn. So if you go back to the old rogue trader lore, for example, orcs would occasionally find groups of Ogryn before the Imperium did. And I think we've talked about this on previous episode, where orcs will match the sort of military power or like weapons level of whoever they're fighting at the time. And if they're a bunch of feral Ogryns, they'll basically strip down to like knuckle dusters and leather pants and just start slogging the absolute snot out of each other. Just Orc v Ogryn. And every now and then, one of the Ogryn will win, and the Orcs will just be like, all right, you lot, you're with us now. And they'll round up these Ogryns and just take them with them. And so you would actually have Rogue Trader era Orc warbands that just had like units of Ogryns in them. And sometimes they'd paint themselves green, or they'd be wearing the face, like the body paint and that sort of stuff. But they would be, for all intents and purposes, just flesh-coloured orcs. Because,
So in their mind, they're orcs. It's sort of like, a baby gets abandoned in the wood, gets adopted by wolves, and goes, "Well, I'm a wolf.
I'm a wolf."
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what this Ogryn's done. It's just like, I'm an orc. Do you know when you mention it like that? It reminds me, and I've mentioned this on the show before. The old game Diggernob.
Yes.
Where the humans are just like, well, we can't fight against them as humans. We need to fight against them as orcs.
We need to be orcs. We take their weapons, we take their vehicles, we take their mannerisms. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's what the Ogryns are doing in this scenario as well. They're saying is like, okay, these are the people who came to our planet. Well, these are the elements that came to our planet. We need to engage in that level. Do you know what I mean? And but before we move away too far away from that point, the idea of religious nutter Ogryns is glorious, absolutely glorious. I could see an army of Ferritas militia, like the naughty no army that doesn't exist, but having Ogryns that just hang off every word of the preacher or the confessor, but it is a double-edged sword as well, because if he gives them the wrong guidance, the wrong idea, you could see them turning on him, because he is not translating the word of the Emperor correctly.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It would take so very little for those, like a bonehead or something, just going, this is wrong. We lost so many brothers, we did something stupid. Why would the Emperor get us to do this? And we're like, well, that's just the Emperor's teaching, blah, blah, blah. I kind of deal with it. And they go, oh. It would take very little for another confessor to come along and go, I wouldn't mind that Ogryn bodyguard. There's, 25 of them. That's pretty tasty. He doesn't reflect the will of the Emperor. Okay, well, he's gone. And there's no stopping him.
I'm going to tell you something that I've just blatantly stolen from Simon and Andrew over on Second Best Guides. Imagine a bunch of Ogryns, all right, in that religious nutjob army, that regiment that you've just mentioned there.
Yeah.
You ready?
Yep.
With eviscerators.
Oh my! That's what I said to you before.
Yeah.
Ogryns are chainswords.
Imagine strapping like, imagine like a crusader, but they're all Ogryns. Like you give them the tabards and the sort of piecemeal plate mail armor, and they just have these huge eviscerators, and they know, because their commands from the preacher come straight from the Emperor. The Emperor called Preachy Man and said, we gotta go fight them. And these Ogryns are just, Preachy Man talk to Emperor, Emperor tell Preachy Man tell us. In their minds, it's not phone tag, it's one phone call.
Yeah, it's a direct link.
It's almost, a direct link, and the fury that would bring. But it's also why Ogryns are so respectful of the commissariat. So they have a special place in their hearts for commissars, because in their minds, outside of regimental preachers and the ecclesiarchy, because they're obviously in the military, not the ecclesiarchy. They're not walking around with censers and cleaning the pews after each session. They speak to the commissars, and the commissars speak about the Emperor like they know him. So to the Ogryns, these commissars do. To the Ogryns, these commissars are the ones picking up the phone when Emperor on his throne calls. And I have gang ideas, I have squad ideas for the Necromundan 26th, I have an idea for an all Ogryn regiment. Like, there is just
an all Ogryn regiment. That's cool,
dude. You could almost do it with the new codex, from what I've been told.
Yeah, I've never even thought about that idea, but I like what you're saying about the commissars, because back in the day it was, you couldn't even get Ogryns into a chimera without having a commissar attached to them.
Because they're claustrophobic.
Say, okay. Well, I remember the rule was something along the lines of, but it's dark in there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they wouldn't want to go in there just be like, oh no, that's silly, we're not getting in there. So you needed a commissar to go, okay, come on lads, let's jump in here, you're being silly billies. But I like this idea that, they would see that direct line and they would go, this is the word, and this is the voice of the Emperor. And we attach ourselves to this because of our devotion to the Imperial cult.
Yes.
So, but that's a key factor there. You need to get the Ogryns on board with the Imperial cult. And it's something we're going to touch on later in the episode as well. That if they can be easily swayed to the Imperial cult, then it's not too much of a jump in the imagination to sway them to another deity. Do you know what I mean? One of the big four.
To any
probably
belief
not
at
Malal.
all. Well, we said big four, not side
I
characters.
I can just imagine the Ogryns just like, worship Malal? Nah, we're right. We're good.
Here's an interesting little factoid for you. Ogryn are actually known as Ogryn in the Tau Empire and are sometimes inducted into their service as Guavesa. And the equipment they get isn't just your regular pulse rifle and that sort of thing there. They actually issue them with weaponry normally strapped on to battle suits.
That's freaking cool.
So...
That's freaking cool. I didn't know that because I've never really thought about the Ogryn as part of a Tau army. But, oh wow, the Tau... See, this is where the Tau offers such good opportunities to just grab alien species and just go, yes, I'm putting that in. Okay, it's not a Tau episode. I can see that look on your face. But... Anyway, you could run your Ogryns as non-jumping battle suits if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Mind you, sorry, I did want to say something to you before about the eviscerators, right?
Yes.
I don't see the eviscerators as long weapons. That it almost requires too much finesse for them to be able to use it. I see them as like, do you know the stubby sort of orc chainsword?
Oh, dude, the orc weapons
but a longer version
the
of
best.
that.
Oh, yes.
But a longer version of that.
Yeah.
So it'd almost be just maybe just smaller than a human. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like a standard size human, but it's wielded almost like a club. You know,
so you would basically make it like a Polynesian style club that just had like fish teeth or bits of coral in the side of it.
Yeah, but it's chainsaw blades.
Yeah, but it's chainsaw blades. Like it's because they were these big, almost clubs, but it would be a very tribal looking thing. But it's just got this whirring chainsaw blades, and they're just like, because a chainsaw, they hit something with it and they snap the chainsaw, they're going to be like, oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. This thing is effectively a club with a chainsaw blade.
Yeah, it's a club with a chainsaw blade built into it.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh, just jumping back to your previous point as well about the battlesuit weaponry on Ogryns is just so freaking... Imagine Ogryns with shield drones around them. They would have no idea what's going on. They just... That... If you had that, right, that would immortalise the Tau within the brain of an Ogryn. And they're about to... They see like a line of bolter fire just ripple along the horizon at them from Chaos Space Marines. And they're expecting to just be shredded. They've seen it happen before.
Yep.
And suddenly the shield drone kicks in and they're alive. And they just get they get this translated order to charge. They're like, what? What's happened? And the shield drone's like sparking and flaring and it's got, minor little fires all over the place. But they recognise that as their saviour. And they recognise that saviour unit came from their fishy brothers. Wow, that would just like this. You would not be able to turn those Ogryn back. To the Imperial cult. They would they would just see what has happened to other Ogryns under the guise of the Imperium and just be like, no, you're not cared for the way that a shield drone cares for us. A simple shield drone, a nothing unit protects us.
And to them, they and I genuinely think they would possibly love these shield drones. They would look at them as these things worthy of their care, and they'd give they're like children. They'd give them names like that one's Bumpy because he's got a bump, and that one's Bumpy too because he's got a bumpy too, and these Ogryns.
They'd be like Stingy.
Yeah.
Stingy would be a gun drone.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And again, the gun drone saves the Ogryn. It starts shooting at something behind him because he's not aware of what's going on. Turns around, whole bunch of dead Drukhari.
Yeah.
And just goes, you. And I imagine like the little Ogryn assigned shield drones and gun drones, they would have little fetishes on them that they sort of give them,
Well, yeah,
at the end of a battle.
But or you'd they'd see, they'd be like, oh, Bumpy here, and Bumpy comes over and he takes a necklace off this Drukhari and puts it around him. He goes, yeah. And all the other Ogryns would look at Bumpy and be like, yeah, Bumpy necklace, yeah.
Yeah, Bumpy necklace, yeah, you good, you good lad, Bumpy, you best boy.
It's basically it's the Boomba. We've talked. We need to stop giving love and human attributes to robots.
Yes, I know we're breaking the AI code.
Yeah.
We really are. I expect to have my door kicked in by a custode at some stage, or just a federal police officer. But so take that mentality, and I know we've got a couple of reads to go into, but I'm getting a little bit lost in here about the idea of why don't we see Ogryns doing that in the Imperium? Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I want to do this. I want to have like a demolisher siege tank with Ogryn fetishes on it, because that demolisher rocked up and nuked the building that was firing all the angry sparks at the Ogryns.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and they're just like, well, the big tank there is our best friend. What a wonderful thing to have on the battlefield. And so they go give it something. They give it, I don't know, maybe one of their armor plates is like a high level of reward. They rip it off from their chest or shoulder and they put it onto the front panel.
Absolutely. Or just, they cover their hand in paint and they push the handprint against the...
Yeah.
Or Urukai style onto the poor gunner inside the tank and just absolutely just crush his head. They're like, oh,
thanks guys.
What happened to Jenkins? Jenkins put his head out. Oh, God, Emperor, no. He knows you're not supposed to do that for at least 3 hours after the battle. You need to give the Ogryn time to relax. He's claustrophobic. He said it's dark in here and had to put his head out. It's like, well, it's dark where he is now.
Yeah, exactly. He has done his service. Yeah, I really like that, the handprints. So if you had an assigned chimera to an Ogryn unit, you could see the handprints on it, like on the back of the door, or like the front panel or something. I think it's really it's a great place to take the Ogryn, and you can sort of see that happening in Necromunda as well. Like, just forget Ogryns with jobs, in my opinion. Like, yes, they are the principal thing, but with the new way to run them in the Venators, there's a personality and a style that you could take them into this sort of feral, like, when you earn our respect, you've earned it forever sort of mentality. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Where it's almost orc-like in the sense that they go, you've done something that venerates you within the matrix of our society, within the matrix of our community. And so therefore we give you a token that shows you as a friend of the Ogryns. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, once you have that token, like, no Ogryn that is associated with the clans is going to mess with you. I'm sort of putting, like, the Ogre Kingdoms type of spin on them, where I'm saying, like, oh yes, they have a clan type of structure, but I think it's too easy to see them as slave Ogryns.
Have you seen the movie Bright with Will Smith and whatever the Australian guy's name is? Where basically magic is real and there's like orcs and dwarves and elves and stuff.
Yes, I have. And he's an orc copper.
Yeah, he's got the orc cop partner. And there's like, within orc society, there's blooded orcs who are like, they've done something to sort of gain the respect of almost all orc society. And then there's non-blooded orcs, and his partner is a non-blooded orc, and other orcs sort of look down at him. That's how I'm picturing the way you're describing these Ogryn, where they are looking at the army around them or the warband around them or whatever, and they're looking at Gunner Jenkins, who they know sticks his head out during battle, and he rides on, the big tank, and with his gun he makes sure anyone getting too close to us gets shot. So they love Jenkins.
Yes.
And Jenkins is one of them, and when one of the officers needs the Ogryn to do something, at camp or back at command or whatever, they send Jenkins, because when Jenkins comes over, because he's got that necklace that he got from Big Boss Grub when he saved him from those orcs, he comes over and says, "Oh, hey Grub, we need everyone to sort of move to their camp, down 3 or 4," and he's just like, "Okay, Jenkins, yep, you're one of us. You're coming to us. It's good. But they send one of the sergeants. Those Ogryns are going to make it very uncomfortable for him, because that sergeant isn't one of them.
Hasn't earned that respect.
He's
of the
not
community.
blooded.
And I see that happening in Necromunda as well. Like, you have individuals who could approach these. Like, I'm just envisaging an Ogryn tribe in the Ash Wastes.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, don't. Oh, that's awesome.
But they're feral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're feral and they know how to communicate. But you know not to mess with them, because they will beat the living shiatsu out of you, right? So what you go do is you send in emissaries and representatives, but they're only emissaries and representatives who the Ogryns can respect, or who they do respect. And sometimes it might be a redemptionist. You know what I mean? So they hear the word of the Emperor coming from this redemptionist. But because they're a little bit more independent, because they're a little bit more feral, the redemptionists and House Cawdor don't have that sort of fear of the Emperor in them. It's more like, we're going to go try and negotiate with them, because if we push them too far, they will snap back and claim that we're no longer speaking the word of the Emperor. And we're using our voice magic for nefarious means. Not that they'd ever use the word nefarious, but for the wrong means. And they'll turn upon us. We've seen it happen to other Cawdor. So we need to be very cagey about what we ask for, how we ask for it, and what we expect is positive outcomes for both our people and the Ogryn as well.
I really like that.
Do you know, when you're talking about clans, and we will go back to the read, but I'm getting a bit carried away. Because then you've got to talk about breeding as well. So this implies that, there's going to be the capacity for the Ogryns to breed in the Ash Waste. So,
of course,
there's got to be Ogladies.
Ogrets?
Ogrets. Oh, that's cute. I like that.
It is cute. I like that. They are Abhumans, and obviously outside of Games Workshop giving us official information on the mating habits of Ogryns, which I can't imagine they ever will. I believe it would still be the exact same way regular humans breed. Obviously squats or the Leagues of Votan are different. They're cloning. We can make our assumptions about beastmen. We've all seen the videos of Horatio Valentino. But I still think it would be male, female. I'm not a scientist. Zygotes and gametes. Ovum.
I'm assuming it's very, very, very.
I think it would be like gorillas, just violence. Can we stop talking about this, please? For the love of all things
wandered
holy.
In a horrible pathway. Yes, okay. Ogryn mating habits was not where I thought this episode would go. But
weirdly enough, it was not on my bingo sheet for what we were going to talk about in 2025.
Well, it was on mine, so I've almost got a full line so far. Right, so let's talk about some of the different, I guess, specialists. We've talked about the Ogryns collectively as a whole, and I guess how they function, what they function, and just our own interpretation. But we know that there are different types of ranks or specializations within them.
Well, these are great. These are awesome because, like you said before, with this new Abhumans supplement that also has Venators in it, I've read through these a couple of times since sort of stealing this episode idea from Simon. I genuinely see ways you can do every single one of these in a Venator gang. Now with the new sort of the rules, like of using Ogryns, they are all viable.
Yeah, absolutely. You could run all of these. Like I think if you're liberal enough with your thinking, and you actually don't even need to be that liberal with your thinking with the new rules. You can pretty much create whatever you want, because at the end of the day, it's the war gear options that I find help really define, what the character's going to be.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get into the first option rather than just constantly talking about them in some sort of vague manner. The Bonehead. Among the dim-witted Ogryn species, there exist certain rare individuals who, despite their primitive mindset, exhibit a rare glimmer of intelligence, problem-solving capabilities, memory, or natural drive. Such individuals quickly stand out amongst their brethren, making them ideal candidates for biochemical Ogryn neural enhancement. Bone. Yeah.
It took me years to realise that.
That's Bone, yeah, righto. Recipients of such procedures generally refer to themselves as Boneheads and possess enhanced cognitive capabilities well beyond those of an unaltered specimen. Many are able to remember their own names, count some of their fingers, or even make tactical decisions beyond hitting things. Capabilities that quickly mark them as eligible for positions of limited authority.
It also shows you how low the bar is set in the Astra Militarum. It's like, all right, how do we make officers? Do they know their own name? Check. Can they count their fingers? Check. Do they know how to do things beyond hitting it? Check. Congratulations, you're now Lord Solar. But
Lord Solar Bonehead.
just for some reason, one day an Ogryn climbed onto Leontis's horse, and everyone's just like, I think he's the Lord Solar now. He's just got the helmet sitting on the top of his head. It's like, I is Solar.
I Solar. Me Solar. Look at this. 1, 2, 3.
You just millions of guardsmen cheering.
He has arrived. Finally, somebody who could stand in his shoes. Anyway, I'm referring to Macarius, by the way.
Macari Ogryn.
Macari Ogryn. Yes.
Damn it, gang
absolutely.
idea.
Gang idea. Yes. Comes to Necromunda with the story of Macari Ogryn.
It's an Ogryn who gets hit in the head and is concussed and is sitting there and is watching a telly movie about the life of Lord Solar Macarius, and it's just full of inconsistencies. Like, he single-handedly killed Gazkal on Armageddon, and he conquered 500 worlds, including Ultramar, and
he's actually got a seat on the Golden Throne next to the Emperor.
Yeah, he's right there.
He chooses not to use it.
And it's just nonsense. And this Ogryn's just like, oh man, this is awesome. And just names himself Macari, Macius or Mercurius. He changes it every time, and he starts dressing up like this picture of this Lord Solar, which is actually like the 41st Millennium version of Prince Charming. And he's got
from Shrek, yeah.
From Shrek, yeah. And he's just dressed. He's got a little bob haircut, and he gathers a group of Abhumans and former slaves. He actually does. He becomes this Robin Hood figure. He's horrifically brutal to slave traders and guilders and that sort of stuff. And it's just real. Then he'll burn down guild officers, and then he just starts handing out candy to kids at the orphanarium. And everyone's like,
Venarian.
what is going on? Like, we'll go fight with him. Yeah, Makari Ogryn. Boom.
I love him.
I love him.
He's my new favourite. Look, I'm already a massive fan of Makari Ogryn, to be honest. I'm a Makari's fan. So the idea of Makari Ogryn uniting under his sort of like banner is amazing. But
I'm imagining him leading his Abhuman crusade to the free town of Freehold, and just hanging out with all the Abhumans and sort of like free people there, and just been like, yeah, you're now part of my Imperium, and they're all just sitting there going, what is this guy talking about? I don't know, but he is massive, and look at that hat.
Yeah, he is glorious. He kills like 6 horses a day, but he is glorious.
Nah, he'd be on a chariot.
Yeah,
he'd be on a chariot
because
pulled
he would
by...
have murdered many horses by sitting on them.
Yeah.
So they're just like, this is ridiculous.
They built him a chariot, and it is pulled by a pair of Escher cutters.
No.
Yeah, because he's so heavy, they go quite slow.
It just drags him on the ground. No, I was thinking sentinels, but sentinels, like, you combine the two together and you have like a horse. So it's
horse
like a four-legged
sentinel.
two four-legged sentinels with like his heralds sitting in the crew compartments, just like yelling out all the wonderful things he's done, all of the titles he has.
Did I just become Makari Ogryn? Did the Makari Ogryn just become one of my new names?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Do not
from down under.
No,
Makari Ogryn.
No. You cannot take Makari's name in any way, shape, or form. The greatest thing. Anyway, back to the Bonehead. So the Bonehead is our leader. He, like, within the Venator gang, he is the leader. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think within the society as well, they're not going to venerate the Bonehead the same way they do a preacher or a commissar or anything like that, but they'll certainly see them as something that is due a level of respect. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So the Bonehead doesn't have the direct line to the Emperor or anything like that, but it has a better understanding of those who do have that direct line. You know. So look, I mean, within the confines of Necromunda, I would see a Bonehead as, I'm sort of piggybacking off your idea here, but a Bonehead who views themselves as a Thunder Warrior. In some way, shape or form, one little data slug or data spike has been implanted into the Bonehead's head about the Thunder Warriors and how they can survive for so long and whatever the case might be. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm big, I'm muscly, I'm a little bit dim-witted at times. I can acknowledge that within myself. Maybe I am one of these Thunder Warriors. The funny thing is, though, he's scared of thunder.
Yes. Yes. Oh. He'd be a Thunder Warrior.
He'd be a Thunder Warrior, yeah. He wouldn't know how to pronounce it. So that's why the Inquisition let him get away with it. It's like, we're pretty sure he doesn't know what he's talking about. We're not going to pull him up on it, but we're like 99.9% sure he has no idea what he's going on about.
This reminds me a lot of, it was Thrug 12, the Ogryn gladiator. He was a member of the Dayglow Dragons, and he eventually basically caused this huge sort of rebellion, and him and his Ratling mate basically overthrew the Dayglow Dragons' gang hierarchy and caused it then Ogryns and mutants and beastmen and ratlings and that. And Thrug basically just left. And he's, they call him Smarticus, because it's obviously like Spartacus. Yeah, but that's how I'm picturing this Bonehead, where he's been augmented and he's smarter and that. And because, I agree with you. I see him as the leader. I see him as the one that the other Ogryn look to him or him or her, because this Ogryn can talk to the traders at the market, and
he's able to negotiate on both hands.
Yes, or can read maps. Like he looks at it and goes like left, right. He knows left and right because he knows if he looks at his finger and thumb, one makes an L and one makes a pointing at the L.
Yeah.
And that's how I picture the bonehead. And then, that would be cool.
So yeah, definitely. And within the confines of the Venezuela gang, it's very, very easy to do now.
Yeah.
That's your leader, straight up and down. And I sort of think that like it's easy to make them very aggressive Ogryns, but I just don't see them as that. I see them as like easy to anger, incredible monsters when angry, but most of the time just like gentle giants.
Yeah. Basically, that one guy everyone knew at high school, that he was this big, intimidating guy, but he just loved Magic the Gathering and like Full Metal Alchemist. And you're just like, yeah, man, that's cool. And then someone pushed him too far and he slammed a kid through a table, and then everyone's just like, man, I am not annoying Smarticus ever again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like he's an angry individual. Let's leave him be.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, look, we could go on a bit more about the Bonehead, the Thunder Warrior, the Macarian, but let's move on to the real sort of the stalwart of the hierarchy, because he's a bulwark.
Yes, the next one is the Bulwark. An Ogryn's primitive nature is the direct result of the harsh environment in which they develop. The cold, feral worlds of ice and death that the Ogryn subspecies calls home, providing little incentive for mental development. As such, an Ogryn embodies the most primitive aspects of humanity, though greatly enhanced and exaggerated due to their severe retrogression. Yet, in spite of their dim-wittedness, they possess an underlying savagery and hardy physique that makes them incredibly useful on the battlefields of the 41st millennium. The Imperium of Man often recruits these massive creatures as shock troops, arming them with crude and simple weapons before pointing them at the enemy and unleashing them on their foes. Weirdly enough, also what happens when a nightclub in Scotland empties at the end of a night.
Do you know what I was going to say, actually? It's the direct result of the harsh environment which they develop, the cold and the ice. It reminds me a lot of New Zealand.
Inappropriate.
Why is that?
Inappropriate.
Whoa. Listen,
where I'm from was actually very volcanic. So, oh god, I've grown up on 2 Death Worlds.
I've had letters written to me by the Council of Welsh Defence, and they've asked me to attack you on a nation-based level, not on a personal, but where you're originally from. So
this is the Bulwark, and the Bulwarks are, in my opinion, probably one of the coolest sort of looking things. I believe they come from the Rogue Trader RPG.
Yes, yeah, they do. Yep.
Yeah, but the picture of them is this Ogryn in sort of like classic Ogryn gear, like pants, boots, and there's just like he's got like a leather harness around him, and then there's just these improvised armor plates all over him. He's got the mohawk. He has a literal neck chain. It is like a length of chain that he has snapped off something and it's put around his neck because his jewelry. And then he's just got this huge club. But it's kind of an insulting description of them, in spite of their dim-wittedness. You know, they provides little incentive for mental development. You know, they're greatly exaggerated due to their severe retrogression. Maybe they just like fighting. Why are you so ableist, Imperium?
So, look, I mean, yes, potentially they do just like fighting, but I also personally think there would have been some attempt to have something that resembles a decent conversation with them. And it would have just been like, you said a word that makes me scared, so I'm going to start swinging. And that word can range from anything from, I don't know, like chicken or toaster or toaster chicken, which is the ultimate insult in the bulwark language. And you can understand why they just start swinging. But in reference to the picture that we're looking at, I sort of get the ogre feel from them. Do you know what I mean?
It is very ogre. Like this is
Yeah.
If this one's even got a gut plate. It's got the sort of imperial sort of skull, winged skull. But yeah, this is very sort of like ogre bull style.
But without they're not got that chunky sort of like couch potato look to them.
It's muscle versus fat.
Yeah, exactly. They're more sort of a lean sort of thing, and this is where I think, the Ogryn at this stage becomes. You imagine you're an imperial governor and you come to a planet and you've got 10,000 Ogryns living in a community. You're just going to look at that as one of the best resources you have available. And then you go to communicate with them. And as I said before, they'll probably have trigger words like chicken or toaster that makes them angry. And they go, okay, don't use those words. And they start to reel off a list of things that they can't say to them. And that then would go, okay, we understand that these aren't the sharpest tools in the shed. In fact, they're not really tools. They're more sort of very, very blunt instruments that we hurl at the enemy. But they'll also be good for, I don't know, punching holes in the ground to make wells.
This is just you falling back onto your hole digging occupation. But no, but that's the thing. Like it literally, it's a great description for the bulwark there, where they run through it all. And something I didn't put in the read here that I have written down here, but I do love it's one of those weird things they sort of say. It's like a compliment insult. I want to say it's a complisult, but it says here, as with all Ogryns, the line between placid stupidity and mindless rage is a fine one, and easily crossed in the rush of combat. The death of a companion, the harsh words of a commander, wounds inflicted by an enemy, any of these may be enough to drive such an Ogryn into paroxysms of rage at the mere sight of a foe. So it's almost as if the Ogryns that make up the ranks of bulwarks are they're simple. Once again, they remind me of that quiet guy at school, Magic the Gathering. What else did I say you liked? Full Metal Alchemist. And then all of a sudden, he snaps and he kills a football team with a table, because that's what they do with these particular Ogryns. They are more feral. The bulwarks aren't necessarily given ripper guns. Like your regular Ogryn are smart enough to use them, whereas with bulwarks they focus on almost that primitive. Sort of ranked combat aspect of human society. So, they literally are the close combat version of Ogryns, which, seeing as all Ogryns are very close combat orientated, that is terrifying. And
yeah, exactly. It's like our specialist troops are Ogryns, so close combat. Oh, fantastic. Now, they have a little niche category, and they're called bulwarks. Please don't communicate with them. Just point them in the right direction and say that anything that's not wearing khaki or green is an enemy of the Emperor. And then just start kicking.
Bulwarks are also often indicated to be champions of either sort of Ogryn squads, tribes, or even regiments, and will often undertake challenge combat against the heroes and champions of other armies. Can you imagine some, world eater champion? He has been around since the heresy. He is a true veteran of the Long War, and he's committed murders and atrocities all across the Imperium throughout the Eye of Terror. He's very similar to, he has a herald that calls out his names, much like a individual like myself has. And he's very focused on that true noble combat aspect of Khorne's vision, and he goes
Yeah.
out in front of his army and he says, I'll before we destroy you all, you send out your mightiest hero and I'll defeat them in one-on-one combat. And this Ogryn comes out with like, I don't know, a tree, and just beats like. Just annihilates this guy, like rips off his arms and is just crushing his helmet. And the Chaos Space Marines and the Traitor Guard and that are just looking to be like, oh no. Because they then realise that they're sending out an Ogryn regiment to rush them. Like,
What?
blood for the blood god, poop for my ceramite pants.
Yeah, but it's almost like I'm not even mad. Like that was so impressive to watch, and
That was awesome.
even like some random unit of summoned bloodletters are just applauding, just like, well done, sir. Well done. You understand.
Bravo, bravo. Yes, pip pip. Hello, haha.
But
Oh
but
no!
what I s-
Can someone unsummon us, please? Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no!
I don't want to get too stuck on the bulwark, but I do have another sort of idea of what the challenge could be, and it would be, when, say, if a regiment has an issue with another regiment, and it's like, send out your champion and they'll battle, and, it'll be like almost like a ceremonial type combat, and they send out the bulwark. And it's like, what are they called? The Blue Bloods? The
Volpone Blue Bloods.
Valpone Blue Bloods. Imagine him sending out like an officer or something with a dueling saber and that kind of get up, and he's like, yes, whatever comes at me, I'll take it down. And then this shadow just appears over the top of him. And it's like, not only am I going to lose this fight, I am going to hurt through the entire process of it.
It's This is going to kill you, and it's going to hurt the whole time.
Yeah. Oh, look, I mean, can't imagine the killing each other, 'cause that's non-sanctioned by the guard.
No, but the Volpone Blue Blood would be looking at the enemy and just being like, yes, yep, you know what, none of us have to fight, we're all going to go enjoy a nice recaf and maybe polish our boots, and we're sending out this group of Ogryns. They've recently discovered the joy of alcohol, and they are going to make your day very upsetting.
Yeah, exactly.
But I would love to make a bulwark for this Ogryn gang that we seem to be creating here. Where I wouldn't run him as a champion, I'd have him as just like a regular old ganger, and literally just give him a big whopping two-handed club or two-handed hammer or something, and just
No. What
just
you want to
slort
give him?
or like
No, weapon-wise, what is it? The aberrant? The aberrant from basically has like
the two-handed power hammer.
No, maybe that's not the miniature I'm thinking of. There's a miniature that basically has like a clump of concrete attached to a pole.
Yeah, that's the aberrant champion, Abominant.
Yeah, so that's the kind of weapon I could see him running around with, like just something's just ripped out of the ground. You know what I mean? Or even like an arch from a bit of City Fight Terrain or something like that. It's just this arch just runs around and just slammed it into things left, right, and centre.
He has a piece of rebar with a bust of Ronti Helmore stuck on the end of it.
Absolutely perfect, yes. And just yells out Helmore when he smashes people's faces.
Yeah, and they call him the Helmore.
Yeah.
Yep, done.
Yeah, perfect.
Done.
He's sorted. Okay, we don't need to worry about him. He is immortalized in the game. All right, I'll move on to the next one, which probably will be a very easy fit into the gang. It's the gun lugger. An Ogryn's ranged weapon proficiency may vary greatly from individual to individual, often coming down to the Ogryn's individual dexterity and whether or not he is able to remember how to operate the firearm in combat. Regardless, Ogryns are markedly uncoordinated as a rule, and any attempts at accuracy often produce results that are mixed at the best. Even the most skilled Ogryn marksman rarely approaches the exacting degree of precision expected of the average Imperial Guardsman. However, there are many Ogryn who derive substantial enjoyment from the mere act of firing the weapon regardless of accuracy, instead reveling in the raw, destructive power in their hands as they thoughtlessly expend countless rounds of ammunition downrange. Such Ogryns usually are truly colossal creatures whose bulging muscles and gigantic stature allow them to manipulate their oversized weapons as effortlessly as a normal man might wield a lasgun, while relying on their immense bulk to compensate for any recoil. So this actually reminds me of way back in second edition, they had the Ogryns with Ripper guns. And back then, you I think you needed to roll, like you did, not think you needed to roll sustained fire dice. But there was a rule with the Ogryns, and I can't remember, and I'm happy to be corrected on it or advised upon, where basically I think you needed like a commissar or something with them to just stop them from shooting.
Because they they just hold down the trigger and use
just hold it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just go bam, 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 bam. This is so much fun, and they'd be like, So I think if it was like, I think it was like you had a shooting phase with them or something like that, and then if there was no officer around or something like that, then that was like your one shooting phase, but you rolled sustained a fire dice an extra time or something. I'm totally making that up and paraphrasing a bit, but it was something close to that.
I know little amount about the rules that could be genuine rules, and I wouldn't know.
It does sound like a good rule, in my honest opinion. But the gunlugger it's really awesome, and we just don't see it in 40k in guard armies.
Yeah.
Like the reality is you should have Ogryns with like tri-barreled heavy stubbers.
Yes.
So just like walking around with these monstrous things, just laying down firepower left, right, and centre, and all of like whatever weapon you want to give them has to be like, it has to be a heavy bolter, but like maybe an Ogryn styled heavy bolter. So it has twin barrels or something along those lines, or maybe just two heavy bolters strapped together. So that, for me, is, you just don't see it enough. And that's where Necromunda comes in. You can actually put a heavy weapon in the hands of an Ogryn now, thanks to the Apocrypha. But if you're going to do it right, it has to be a rapid firing slug weapon.
Yes.
Don't be giving a plasma cannon or a bloody las cannon. Like an Ogryn with a las cannon just... probably it doesn't work anyway because of the poor ballistic skill, but it also just doesn't feel right.
It's one shot. It's one shot.
Yeah.
An Ogryn should, in my mind, have ripped up the auto cannon from like a heavy weapons team, or has pulled it off the side of a destroyed vehicle, and has gotten one of his mates to jury rig like a trigger, and he carries it around in one arm, and then does the Rambo thing where he's got the bandoliers of ammo over the other arm, and he's just spraying. Like, he's making Try Again Bragg look like a proper marksman, because he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn if he was throwing barns at barns.
Do you know what I'd love to see, actually? This just popped into my head when you mentioned that, about just having a colossal amount of weaponry on them. Do you know the new, it's not new, it's been out since last year, the turret, the defense turrets? You know what I'm talking about?
That is exactly the type of gun they should be hauling around.
But like mounted like one over each shoulder, and just like a harness of where you just like basically just punching out rounds and just holding it up until the red light flashes, which is you got no more ammo.
That's the stop button.
Yeah, that's the stop button. It's like from Waterworld, the dude in the little turret. And he's just shooting, and he shoots so much, he rips through there like his own allied
that's right.
ship.
And they're saying stop, 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 and he blows up his boss's boat, and he's just like, oh no. And that's exactly how I see Ogryn do it. This Ogryn doing it. Yeah. No.
And awesome. Totally, and they have to be totally equipped with this kind of weapons. But I personally, I haven't seen gunluggers anywhere. Like I haven't seen them like in any fashion, especially within the Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum. So I think they're more sort of something that's probably living in the realm of like, what is it, the roleplay game? I can't think of its name.
Yeah, so it was from the role-playing game again. But yeah, a lot of the Ogryn options outside of like Ogryns, Sharonites, Ogryns with jobs, Bulgryns and Ogryn bodyguards. Everything else we've talked about is going to be from the role-playing games.
Yep.
The gun lugger is also the one of the paths for the Ogryns in Darktide.
Is it really?
Yeah, yeah.
I've played a bit of Darktide. I haven't played the Ogryn that much though. But actually no, I do know now because there were players running around with heavy stubbers or like I think it was a dual barreled heavy stubber, and they just like lay it down, just street sweeper nonsense. You know what I mean? So yeah,
And
no,
yeah,
they're
you know
freaking
what? Big heavy stubbers make sense for them once again because it's big, it's loud. They love that loud noise. But
yeah.
yeah,
So like you take a rapid firing weapon like a multi laser, right? The Ogryn is never going to go near that when there's a heavy stubber nearby. It's going to be like, absolutely sign me up for the heavy stubber over the multi laser, even though it's still a rapid firing concept. It doesn't have the same effect.
way too complicated.
Multi laser is point shoot. You know, the guard used them. Point shoot.
Yeah, but
I'm
but it's also like, okay, what if you have to realign the firing crystals? What if you need to clear out the ionization inside the barrel? Or, sorry, carbonization inside the barrel. Like, they can't do any of that.
You're making it sound
Yeah,
like something
that heavy
a Van
stubber,
Sar would want
worst
to do.
case scenario, snap the barrels off. You got a short, heavy stubber. That's Ogryn thinking, son.
A heavy stubber
Worst
style
case
shotgun.
scenario, your heavy stubber runs out of ammunition. Hit the enemy with the heavy stubber. You hit someone with a multi-laser, your local tech priest is going to be having an absolute Control-Alt-Delete.
Get me that Ogryn.
Like,
Nah, he's
yeah.
alright. Leave him alone.
Gun luggers are basically, in my mind, heavy weapons platforms dressed up as Ogryns. And that's how they should be. They should be, especially in somewhere like Necromunda, they should be dirty. They should be, like, I'm picturing, the heavy stubber idea of yours is perfect. It's just perfect.
Mate, that's one of the heavy weapon team options for the 26th. Is a gun lugger.
Don't.
Done.
Gun lugger. Done.
Yeah. And do you know what you do? You run them as the new Death Corps Krieg ones because it's supposed to be an individual model per base. You know what I mean? And then they've got a spotter as well, like their gun crew, like the crew chief or whatever he's called. I don't know his exact name, but you've got your 3 individuals on bases and then the weapon guy, and the weapon guy could be like a Van Sar or something.
Yeah.
That would be cool. And then you've got 3 Ogryns equipped with the twin-linked heavy stubbers, who are just gun luggers. And then they've got like a little like implant spike in their head. And that's how the Van Sar's coordinating them.
Yeah, that's cool.
That would be very, very sick. Very, very cool.
Oh, I like that.
Did you want to bounce on to our next one?
Yeah. The next one here is quite possibly one of the, in my opinion, best options you can take in any form of Imperial force. And that is the Oathbound Bodyguard. Now, an Oathbound Bodyguard is an Ogryn who is sworn to defend the life of a high-ranking Imperial servant. Ogryns make excellent bodyguards, for they are loyal, determined, and extremely hard to kill. In this role, they have but one duty: to protect the Astra Militarum officer or other Imperial dignitary to whom they are assigned. Whether they achieve this by throwing themselves in the line of fire, or by slaughtering all enemies who come near their charge, they are invaluable retainers in the swirl of combat. Among the officer cadres of Astra Militarum regimental commands, it is considered a great honour to have an oath-bound Ogryn bodyguard. Normally, Ogryns are such a valuable asset that they are formed into squads and used as shock troops or blocking detachments, but sometimes a high-ranking officer manages to requisition one for their own personal retinue. In the same way that officers sometimes have advisors from other arms of an Imperial crusade or other Imperial force, An Ogryn can end up shadowing a captain, colonel, or general as they take a journey to the front to inspect the war. Like, that is proper Ogryn. Like, that reminds me very much of the Planet of the Apes, Ape Together Strong, where I think it's the first one where someone's about to kill Caesar and this gorilla like throws himself in the way and he sort of looks at Caesar.
Right.
He's like, I've protected the little one.
Even
though
right.
Caesar was a super intelligent orangutan. But Ogryn, this goes back to that simplistic nature I think we make fun of a little bit when it comes to Ogryns, but in my mind, they are the truest example of I will do anything I can to complete my duty, even if my duty is to die saving someone else. And yeah, Ogryn bodyguards are. I have to make one for the 26th, but
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
You could definitely imagine somebody from House Grime requisitioning an Ogryn for themselves.
yeah.
Just going, I need one of these. Like these gangers and these Goliath and so forth. They just don't. They're not enough. I need a proper slab of muscle.
Yeah.
And actually, for the tournament that I'm going to this year, I'm actually for the first time ever taking an Ogryn bodyguard. Like, I've just never done it before, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, do you know what? I'm going to do it. It sort of makes sense for the army that I want to run. But yeah, exactly what you're saying. I guess the thing about it is we talk about it from the Astra Militarum officer's point of view of like, oh, it's, what a great honour it is to have this oath-bound bodyguard, and, this officer is so lucky and blah, blah, blah. But the Ogryn themselves, they would be probably thinking, wow, look, I get to protect one of the Emperor's voices.
Yeah.
One of the ones that gets called directly from the Emperor. I am his best bud. I am his number one protector, and that would come with quite a lot of pride attached to it as well.
Yes.
They'd be sitting there going, "Yes, this is my role." And now forget the idea that it's an Astra Militarum officer, and look at it from the point of a gang leader, an inquisitor. Basically, any part of the nobility or seniority of any imperial house, having this attached to them, and that Ogryn would attach themselves to that with the idea that this person has a direct link to the Emperor.
But on top of that, it goes back to that mindset of Ogryns latching on to. They need something to latch on to. The majority of Ogryns latch on to the Imperial truth. Many of them latch on to the Imperial truth of the Astra Militarum. They latch on to the truth of the orcs. They all latch on to this belief. And can you imagine a gang leader who has somehow rescued like a baby Ogryn or like a full-grown Catachan, and effectively is just, can you imagine this, I don't know, just imagine an Orlok who's freed an Ogryn or whatever, and he's like, hey, do you want something to eat? Yeah, come on. And then all of a sudden, like, he's a drudge. If he's a drudge, he's helped this Ogryn, and then all of a sudden the gang member is picking on him, and this Ogryn just absolutely wallops, 3 shades of just hell out of this gang.
3 shades of denim. Yeah.
3 shades of denim. Black, blue, and wash.
Black again. Stonewash.
And
this is my favourite one, Stonewash. Die.
And so then all of a sudden that drudge is just part of the gang. And then all of a sudden that drudge is now the leader of the gang. All because this Ogryn is just his friend. And
yeah, and you could see that happening in a gang environment.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I think Ogryn bodyguards are something. I wish we had the ability to not just have the Ogryn brutes. I wish we could have characters we could develop in other gangs. But this is where this Abhuman supplement, and then one of the reasons why we're doing the Ogryn episode, why it's so important, because we can now do this. And
yes, 100%.
And in regards to Ogryn bodyguards, there's actually 3 very famous examples. The first, and I'm going to give you a quote from the first. The sergeant major asked me what my job was, and I said it was to do what I was told. He said I was a genius and gave me another medal. I liked the Imperial Guard. And that is Nork Dedog, the Ogryn bodyguard.
Ah,
Possibly the most famous Ogryn of all Imperial history. Like, the guys had miniatures and artwork, and I think he's been around since the second edition
yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Imperial Guard Codex, and like he's done everything. He is literally requisitioned by the who's who of the Astra Militarum. He's gone from crusade to crusade everywhere. He is requested specifically, and he was actually selected by the Schola Progenium to serve in the Astra Militarum, not only because he could write his name, N is for Nork, he could count to 4,
Whoa.
and
Whoa.
he could even speak fluently and understand orders without hesitation or difficulty. And then he went to serve with many tiny versions of himself by serving with a Catachan regiment. There's a great example of how much he cared for the commissar he was given to by the name of, I believe it was like Grice, Colonel Grice. There wasn't a commissar, it was Colonel Grice. And Grice was injured, and he said to Nork, go and grab me the Medicare kit out of the Chimera. And he couldn't find it, so he just dragged the Chimera to him.
Yes, I
And then he
love that
throws
story.
Grice in, and then drags the Chimera back to
Yeah.
to friendly lines. And then, like, at a completely different combat, he beats up an Orc war boss. Like, just beats the absolute tar out of him. And then, because all his knobs were around him, and his mega knobs, he beats the tar out of them as well. Like, because his job was protect this guy. Like,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just like, yep, okay, well, I need to protect. And the other way I can protect right now is by beating the living shiatsu out of these guys.
G+.
G plus. There's actually, if you are looking for a great image of an Ogryn bodyguard, it's a miniature somebody did. It was actually, do you know the Victoria Lamb, very famous within,
Yes.
you know, she actually made this beautiful version of Nork holding a fallen Imperial officer
In the white uniform?
in the white uniform.
Yeah.
Brilliant,
Oh, it's amazing.
brilliant
It's
stuff.
amazing.
And just the way it's captured, it just looks like Nork's fighting his way out of a particularly nasty situation
Yep.
in which that officer has been wounded. So yeah, like Nork Dead Dog has always been an absolute favourite of mine, because it exemplifies what all Ogryns want to get to. You know,
Yes.
that pure service and getting that pat on the head at the end of the day. It is.
Yeah.
It is one of the most important things that they need to get, so that they can, I don't know, validate their service.
Yeah. Well, another great example of Ogryn here is one by the name of Urok, who was actually serving once again amongst tiny Ogryns with the 233rd Catachan Jungle Fighters. And he basically made friends with an older Catachan soldier by the name of Gurion. And when Gurion was killed by a group of Orc boys, Urok just broke. He was inconsolable and is now actively hunting the orcs that killed his friend. Like, he's gone from just this Ogryn who serves with the Catachan to someone who has snapped and is now now immediately reacting to that violent option. He's becoming more of that bulwark or that berserker.
I was about to say, yeah, he's like going feral almost.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
right.
the third notable Ogryn bodyguard I wanted to bring up here, it actually comes from some of the newer lore, and I'm actually getting emotional thinking about this. Was Belzer of Necromunda, who, through noble action of the highest order, sacrificed himself for the sake of his loved ones as they fled Hive Secundus. There's no way in hell any of you thought we were going to talk about Ogryns without me talking about the best boy. Best boy Belzer. Look, you can see me in the camera here. I'm tearing up. Every time I think about him, I just get upset. I love you, Bob, but you have broken me, sir.
He is the greyest of boys.
He is the greyest of boys.
That is one of my favourite bits. Just refer to him as a patch of grey. Just wonderful. But yeah, like infamous on this show, infamous on this podcast, Belzer, and rightly so.
Amazing.
Ogryn bodyguards. Just look, if you don't include them, you should include them.
Yeah.
And yeah, for the first time ever, I'll be taking them onto a tournament this year. I can't actually wait to use it. He'll probably die multiple times, but always in service of his officer.
Make him charge a world eater. Just do it for me.
Oh, if they're there, yeah, absolutely.
Done.
He'll go punch Angron straight in the gidleys. Right, we'll move on to another element of the Ogryns, the Bulgryn. Bulgryns are clad in custom-made carapace armour, made out of discarded tank tracks, and carry crude melee assault weaponry intended to capitalise on the Abhumans' stature and sheer resilience. While some wield power mauls and buckler-like brute shields, the simple but effective slab shields are their trademark, locking together to form a mobile defence line. So deployed, these Bulgryn units provide their comrades with a wall of walking cover as they advance across the battlefield, soaking up vast volumes of enemy fire in the process. The Ogryns take their protective duties very seriously and will often form a line at the slightest sound of gunfire, which can be most inconvenient in crowded trenches. Yet Imperial Guardsmen advancing behind a Bulgryn squad swiftly forget such mishaps as shots whine harmlessly from the Ogryn shields, leaving those soldiers crouched in their lee unharmed. Needless to say, casualties are high amongst Abhumans themselves, but the close-range bombardments of the Ogryns' grenadier gauntlets exact brutal revenge soon enough. The foes are left reeling and shell-shocked even before the maul-wielding Ogryns charge into their midst and bludgeon the survivors to a red paste. I adore the idea of these Ogryns almost acting like Roman legionaries in the way that they shield wall up.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's so cool. Forget the idea that they're reacting to every gunshot, but more so that, you know, they've been told your objective here is to protect. You don't worry so much about the killing. We need to get, you know, a squad of Cassican or some engineers or, you know, a specialist heavy weapon or the now defunct special weapon squad behind you, closer to the enemy. So how are we going to do that? We need you to interlock together, you know, and just keep advancing. And it's almost like, infantry regiments and battalions and so forth from like the American Civil War and Napoleonic period, where they sort of fill the ranks. You know, you'll never see that on a tabletop because you'll deploy a squad of 6. But imagine 200 of these deploying. You know, so maybe they get hit by a plasma cannon shot, it blows a huge hole in the middle of them, but they just tighten up their ranks and they keep advancing. And they leave the fallen behind. That's for the medics and whatever else to worry about. Just tighten up, keep advancing, tighten up, keep advancing until they get to a certain point. And it's that real archaic notion of how the Imperial Guard would fight. Like, you know, cavalry and all the rest of it and like that. But the visuals would just be absolutely bonkers. Now,
see, I would love to see them done a little bit more feral, though. So you got that rank where they're interlocking the shields, and it reminds me a lot of that Iron Within show on Warhammer Plus, when the Iron Warriors come to that planet.
Oh, yes.
And they line up, and it's just step, shoot, dead Drukhari.
Yeah.
Step, shoot, dead Drukhari. But you can imagine it like these Ogryns are just doing it. Like they've lined up in the shields and they've got their clubs and that, and they're ready. but they know that not to break because the little ones behind them will get hurt. But those snipers that are behind them, or the rattling squads, like they climb up on the back of the shoulders of one of them, shoot, drop down again, reload, climb up on the almost
that's a
like
cool idea.
or like what's it called when you smash the like the the little marsupial pops his head out.
Whack-a-mole.
Whack-a-mole. It's like whack-a-mole, but whack-a-rattling.
Yeah, so it pops up, shoots, drops back down.
And drops back down. But then they know they get close enough, and then all of a sudden, the bonehead or one of the bulwarks, lets out this roar, and then all of a sudden the shield just splits, and these Ogryns from behind just rush forward. But the whole time you're seeing, like, clubs and spears and real primitive weapons behind them because the disciplined Ogryns are at the front. And the sort of more feral and wild ones are behind. And then as they break through, the ranks close up again. And they're sort of just ready. Step, step, shoot, shoot. Step, step, shoot, shoot. And it's, it would be horrifying. I would rather face down the Emperor's Children in nothing but a leather mankini than see that coming at me Ogryn style.
I love your idea of these disciplined Ogryn. Do you know the one?
Yeah.
Like, this idea that they're the ones that have been picked out because they don't have to be the smartest, but they're the most disciplined. They're not going to give in to that rage or anything like that. And as I said, like, imagine like 200 of them, and there's dots of commissars or castellans throughout their ranks, or even just the sergeants who are just keeping them motivated, just like, hold it together, lads, just keep advancing. But the idea of this playing out in Necromunda, now, this is where you really need to just let your imagination run wild, and having a squad of them, or even just like 5 or 6 of them as like riot police in Necromunda.
Oh, dude.
And they just form a wall in front of the enforcers. And it's like take all the shots, and then exactly what you say there, they break apart, and the enforcers just return fire. Yeah. And then the Ogryns begin advancing. You know what I mean? But in that discipline style.
They are a moving APC. Like, the enforcers could just be walking behind them. These Ogryns are laughing because, your pissy little lass gun is bouncing off my armour. Oh, it hit me in the skin. That tickles. They get closer.
Yeah, but they got the slap shields anyway. They're just like, and then they got to shoot past the shield first.
They just feel these 2 slaps on their back, which is the enforcer going, all right, wait, and ready, pop out the side with my enforcer pattern bolt gun, pop, pop, kill 2 of the scum, or, get their heads down, all right, go. And then have you seen footage of, like, SWAT teams going into compounds and that sort of stuff, where they've always got a hand on the guy's shoulder in front of them?
Yeah.
I imagine that because, if the enforcers, especially bad zone enforcers, I'm imagining a bad zone enforcer captain basically finding one of those Ogryns in the wastes you were talking about before, feeding him, like clothing him, and being like, hey, why don't you come live with us for a while? And this Ogryn's like, oh, you gave me chicken, it's pretty cool. And they deck him out in, like, they find the side of a hab unit and give that to him, and that's his shield. They rig up a minor power system to just a hunk of metal. That's his shock club. Like, it's just proper bad zone style. Like, that would be
what
so
I'm saying
good.
is, like, again, it's very difficult to facilitate in a game, but it is something that would be so cool. Imagine that just advancing down a pretty narrow street. You're just like, mate, I don't want none of this. But you can always just have 2 of them with an enforcer behind them who taps, they split apart, he lays down the fire, they come back together. Do you know what I mean? Such a cool idea of how they could be run in Necromunda. Or even just, I'm just sort of thinking, like, even within other households and so forth, you would run Borgrins very similar to that. Do you know what I mean? And why wouldn't you? Like, give them big chunky shields, let them hold heavy stuff.
You mean like a Ceramite shield, 40 credits, rare 8, which you can get in a Venator gang.
Yes, perfect. There you go. There you go.
+2 to their save for attacks originating in their line of sight, provided they're standing, just like they would be if they were effectively an enforcer bullgrin. It ignores melter and that sort of stuff if it's coming from the front of them. Dude, that would be so easy to do, and that would be so cool to model.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you just go after the Bullgrin kit, you just give them this huge giant slab shield sort of thing, and you play them. You play them as like simple-minded battering rams, like they're almost forget that they're an advancing sort of wall. They could almost be like a battering ram as well, just like they just slam into things, just full on charge, knock them head over heels. Oh,
that would be fun.
Yeah, exactly what I'm thinking. They would just be so much fun to run with. Wow, cool.
Okay.
Move on to our next one.
I'm not gonna read that one because you sort of implied you wanted to read it earlier.
True. Yeah,
I'm gonna leave that one for you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump onto that next one there, which actually is another, I believe, RPG one, the Ogryn Skullbreaker. Now, an Ogryn Skullbreaker is an Ogryn soldier who leans into the Ogryn's foremost attribute, their marvelous intellect. No, it's their prodigious strength. He loves nothing more than to charge into the thick of the fighting, shouldering aside any punies that get in his path to deliver punishing, shattering blows against his chosen target, often while laughing as the tiny, tiny foes tire themselves out, flailing at him in return. It's kind of like when I fight with my kids. Except it's me tiring because they are full of energy.
Yes.
It's not subtle, but it's definitely effective. More importantly, it's fun. Ogryns like having fun. My children are tiny Ogryns. Ogryn Skullbreakers enjoy melee and ranged combat equally and are often armed with improvised clubs, power mauls, massive cleavers, slab shields, and the like for close-in work. For ranged assaults, the standard Ripper gun is the most favoured, though some Ogryns prefer a twin-linked heavy stubber. This is everything we've talked about.
So I feel like this is the RPG version of the collective Ogryn.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? So, forgetting your specialist, this is like your Ogryn who's capable of doing everything that, within reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is what the RPG world is saying. Okay, let's take what we know from the Ogryns in the Astra Militarum, the Ogryns in Necromunda, and let's mash them together, and this is what a Skullbreaker basically is.
Yes.
It is a fun-loving simpleton that enjoys brutality and murder.
It's a 4-year-old. Yeah.
I was going to say, they do sound exactly like your kids.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like, I'm going to have a serious conversation with my wife. But no, like, that's it. This is the propaganda version of what an Ogryn is. Like, if someone was explaining to their kids when they've just seen an Astra Militarum parade and they go, "What are those?" And they're like, "Oh, those are Ogryns." What do? Oh, they just smash people out of the way and get into fights, and they beat up the enemies of the Emperor, and they laugh while they do it because they're big and strong and tough, and they know they've got the Emperor with them, and you know they have big clubs and they've got big loud guns, and the kids will just be like, "Wow, when I grow up, I want to be an Ogryn." And it's like, well, Timmy, this is Catachan. I'll be shocked if you live to 8, but if you do grow up, eventually you will be an Ogryn. Yes.
But I'm going to be 8 next week. Wow.
Said what I said, mate.
Yeah, I said what I said. I might have to get you to go fight a devil and just see how you go.
Go get me some boots.
Yeah.
But yeah, Ogryn Skullbreakers are the propaganda lowest common denominator idea of an Ogryn, but I love the fact that they really emphasize the fact that Ogryns like having fun. This is a big fat party animal in your regiment, or your warband, or your gang, and I'm all about it. This guy's wearing a Hawaiian shirt. He has
an ill-fitting Hawaiian
an ill-fitting Hawaiian shirt. He has one of the hats on with the 2 beer cans.
Yeah.
He has a ripper
Yes.
gun, like shouldered over there, and he's beating on someone with a club that used to be, what are they called? Like a giant candlestick, but the candles are all still lit. And every time he hits you, he yells, +1 fire damage.
What? I'm trying to think of what, like, almost like a... Oh, I'm trying to think...
Like a candelabra?
Is that the one? I don't know. I think we're definitely going to get corrected on that one. I don't know what it is, but yeah, like something you'd see in like an oldie-timey sort of like bar or something like that to light up a section of the bar or tavern. Yeah, right.
You find it in a tavern. He's just... Him and his mates, the other Katachan, were just playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they found out that there was a Gene Stealer cult uprising, and they finished their drinks, and they've gotten up, and they are about to go to town.
I love it.
In my mind, all Ogryns play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, and they all play as a dwarf of some description.
They're all
like, I just want to see. I want to see how it is on the other side. Right. Oh, as you said, we did cover off like the Skullbreaker is your archetype. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I'll move on to the Charonites. Ogryn Charonites were specialist detachments of Imperial army during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy eras that were assigned to the elite Solar Auxilia cohorts when brute strength was required. As their name indicated, Charonite squads only constituted of the physically powerful Abhumans known as Ogryn. Unlike the more common Ogryn Bulwark or Gunripper squads, the Charonite squads were a far more specialised detachment that could, in some regards, be considered as the predecessors of the present-day Astra Militarum Bulgarians, although they also shared a lot in common with the infamous Chaos Ogryn Berserkers, which are thought to be a bastardised version of the original Charonite template. Let me just tell you, for any of our Legion Imperialis fans out there, take Charonite Ogryns in your armies. They are stupid to play against. I've mainly only ever fought against them, and after one combat where they just murdered everything from Terminators to Assault Marines to Command detachments, I was just like, oh, well, that's it. I'm never fighting them again. I would just shoot them from long range. But the way they play in that game is such a key indicator of what they are. You know, they're not running around with guns. They don't mess around with that kind of stuff. They have the most heinous and brutal close combat weapons on them, like pincy,
the Charonite claws.
Yeah, Charonite claws. There's almost like rock drill sort of like razor bladey type thing, and then furthermore to that, they're quite significantly well armored for what they are. Do you know what I mean? Like they're not wearing Astarte style armor, but they've got a fair bit of carapace on them. I will say though, the miniatures, when you look at them, the ones with the face masks over their heads look god awfully terrifying. Like it's got the breathing apparatus attached to the front and so forth. The one with the face mask.
Were you about to say breeding apparatus?
Well, let's not venture back to that pathway. That's it's not a high watermark for the episode, but
start 25 as low as possible. We can only go up.
The one without the helmet on somehow looks more terrifying. I don't know how he does it, but he looks creepy, which adds to the terror. Yeah. He's like, please, mate, don't do what you think you're going to do right now. But this is the Imperium branching out into space and finding slabs of muscle and then making them deadlier with Charonite claws, with all manner of implementation and weaponry attached to them, and pretty much saying, go smash that in. You know what I mean? And the aliens and the non-compliant humans that they would have encountered the absolute terror that these would cause for them. You know, you have Imperial Army, you have Solar Auxilia rocking up, and they've got laser weaponry, and they've got Volkite weaponry, and yes, it's all pretty brutal and destructive, but it all sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, that's what humans are going to run with. And then they deploy, 100 of these to breach a wall. And whoever's defending that wall is just like, well, this is stupid. Like, there is little to no protection, and all they want to do is break things. Mind you, the orcs of like Albanor would have been like, we're fighting them.
We are about to have some fun.
Yeah, this is going to be a proper bash, lads. Drop your blasters or whatever and pick up an axe, because you don't want to miss this show.
Yeah. Here's a question for you. So you are the leader of a heresy-era civilization. And, this fleet comes out to you. Given what you know, what do you think is going to cause more fear in you? A squad of Astartes or a squad of Sharonite Ogryn?
Which Astartes?
Doesn't matter. You don't know anything about them. All you know is they are...
absolutely the Ogryn. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you can speak to an Astartes. You can reason with an Astartes. And Ogryn is going to get to a point where it just goes, I've had enough of this. I'm going to kill everything here. Which, interestingly enough, is also the same opinion of some of those Astartes would have. But
that's why I was trying to get some clarification. If like two world eaters suddenly came to your world and you're just like, we're just basically telling them to boot off, and then they start like ripping things apart, you're like, do you know what? I don't really like you two.
Yeah.
And I find you both very terrifying, and I'm going to go hide in my fortress. See you later.
You mentioned the Sharonite claws earlier. So the Sharonite claws are actually servo claws and matched augmetic implants. And what they actually do is they have the hands and forearms amputated and then have these things installed. The Sharonite Ogryns were primarily designed for fleet combat. They would get onto ships and basically rip and tear their way through the bulkheads and into key positions to actually shut down ships. And here's a great example of why Sharonite Ogryns, in my opinion, are probably some of the scariest Ogryns. Ogryn Sharonite squads also notoriously fought during the Treachery at Port Moore incident, when Grand Admiral LeBray released hundreds of Sharonites within the corridors of his own flagship, the Triumph of Reason, when it came under assault by Sons of Horus traitor legionnaires. Here in the confines of the battleship's corridors, the Sharonites proved utterly deadly, tipping the balance of forces in favour of the Loyalists, until Warmaster Horace Lupercal himself had to intervene to stem the tide. So, Sharonites were basically about to just kick the absolute bajingo out of the Sons of Horus. And it took the literal War Master of Chaos getting involved to stop them.
Yeah, he's had to go, fine, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
So, Horace Lupercal?
Lupercal?
Lupercal, please don't do that. It's surely not how you pronounce it.
Lupercal. Lupercal.
Lupercal.
No, Lupercal. Is this another 50 Cent moment?
Is this another I was born in New Zealand moment? I was about to say Queensland, it's just as bad. They did, however, give us the Aranthian succession. So
they did. Honestly, I was about to say, thank the good Lord Hellbore for the potato gun. No, it's Lupercal. Lupercal. I actually haven't listened to any of the audiobooks about the heresy.
Oh, neither have I. I just thought you were butchering it, and I was trying to save you. But you don't want to be saved. You
I don't want to be
drown.
saved.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So, that gives you a sense of what those Ogryn were capable of doing. And exactly what that little read says, in the tight confines where firepower becomes less of a focal point, and that close combat brutality. There's so much protection on that ship in the terms that there'd be so much like, detritus of the ship just lying around. There'd be, maybe shipping containers and all the rest, all these things for the Ogryns to be able to get enough protection and cover from. That the bolter fire, the heavy weapon fire, the specialist weapon fire would not have the desired effect in thinning their numbers. Then they would get nice and close, and the Sons of Horus would just be like, this is the worst day I've had.
Yeah.
So yeah, and obviously, yeah, Big Daddy H had to come down and be like, okay, you kids, I'm done playing, kids. You are going to get kicked in the Charonite bits.
Yeah, I'm going to kick you right in the Sharonite. But I love the fact that you can just imagine him going in there and being like, what are you all doing? That is a lot of Ogryns. Okay. I'd love for him to be like completely rational and just go, you know what? Understandable, guys. All right, cool. Everyone take a step back. I'm going to deal with this. Abby, get your brothers. Get them all to stand over there. All right, let's do this, gang.
There's no chance that perennial loser was there. Are you saying Abaddon was on board?
I'm assuming he would have been hanging out with Dad.
He's a giant chicken.
Okay, we're gonna change the conversation before we get into an argument.
He shouldn't have gone near Torgadon, but anyway.
Torgadon was a loser.
Don't.
Torgadon got what he deserved.
Oh my god, you are stupid.
So
That's
the
how- I don't
last
call you being
sort of
stupid.
Imperial-themed faction of Ogryns we have
Read your stupid thing, stupid man.
brings us back to Necromunda. Now, it is the free Ogryn. Now, it is rare for Ogryns to rebel against their overseers. It is rare for Ogryns to rebel against their overseers. The docile Abhumans proving abnormally loyal to their human masters. On Necromunda, hundreds of thousands of Ogryns served the clan houses as Abhuman slave labour, or monotask servitors, known as bonces, brain-obedient neo-sapien, cybernetic exo-workers. Their strength makes them perfect for the manufactorums, while their natural resistance to corruption of both body and mind allows them to endure horrific working conditions. It is in the pits before the roar of the crowd that some Ogryns experience the first sparks of rebellion against their oppressive existence, driven as they are by the pitmasters to acts of extreme aggression and murder. Under the gaze of their adoring fans, some Ogryns gain a greater sense of self, their baseline abhuman intelligence evolving into something more. With this increased awareness comes a yearning many Ogryns never knew they had, a desire to be free. And from this foundation, a free Ogryn gang is born, formed around a powerful leader and striking out on its own into the bad zones of Necromunda. Outlawed and hunted, the hulking Ogryns must constantly fight if they are to survive, some carving out settlements from the wastelands, others falling into the service of crime lords and cults. This is the Abhuman gang we're talking about. This Venator gang. This is a collection of Ogryns from different walks of life who have been herded in together, or who have met on different fields of battle, or have wound up in one of these settlements as in ones and twos, or with other people just seeking a better life. We have groups like the Lords of Aranthus, who were the Ogryn bodyguards of the last scions of House Aranthus before the fall, who were simply told they must protect the house, and formed their own society. And obviously now with House Aranthus returning and the Aranthian succession, I'd love to see the big boys and girls of the Lords of Aranthus coming back and find out what they have been protecting. But the Free Ogryn gangs are what we on Necromunda play against, and now we have so many more options, and I think it's a great thing to see. I'd love to see more of the Free Ogryn style miniatures in Imperial Guard or...
Yeah. Oh, free Ogryn within Imperial Guard's really cool. Like, I was going to say that, the majority of the Ogryn that you see on Necromunda would come from this sort of genus. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
This is probably like 80 to 90% of what we're talking about. But wow, you actually just I was letting you go there, but that last bit has got me. The free Ogryn within the guard.
Yeah.
This is where the Necromunda 26th would be really cool to have this. So rather than looking at their Ogryn as like, basically indentured slaves, who they just go, well, we're just going to force you into the front lines. Maybe they've approached somebody like the Lords of Aranthus, or a gang that has, effectively engineered its own freedom. And rather than saying, we're conscripting you, they say, if you offer to fight with us, we will give you X, Y, and Z. They're obviously going to betray them because they're a noble house of the Imperium.
Correct.
So they're not to be trusted.
AKA scumbags.
But the Ogryn don't know that. But the concept of them going onto the battlefield would be, we're doing this of our own volition, of our own choice, for the betterment of our brotherhood and the service of the Emperor. It begins to open up that whole other window of, we're not just serving the Emperor here, we're doing more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where I like... So the slave Ogryn themselves, the idea of serving the Emperor is something that, I guess, would get pushed to the wayside. You know what I mean? It'd be like, we need to survive first and foremost. And if that means we do occasionally silly, naughty things, then, that go against the Imperial truth, then so be it. But... if they could get back within that light, they would. But the idea that with the units that are joining the guard would be units that, I guess, would more inclined to engage that idea that their service to the Imperium and their survival are two interlocking devices that will ensure that House Grime protects their brothers back on Necromunda.
Yeah. I think it'd be great to see them almost being told, like, hey, why don't you come with us? You can get off Necromunda. You don't have to be here anymore. And the Ogryn are just like, all right, wherever we go can't be worse than this. Well, my friends, this is a Carnifex. And, oh no, the Ogryns are eating the Carnifex. Oh dear God.
I was going to say, it can affects actually be worse. It can affects.
Also, wasn't Torgadon killed by Horace Axelmond?
Oh, he was too, because what's his name?
Loken fought Abbey.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But then, see, I still blame Abaddon for that. Like,
sorry, this isn't about
But also,
this isn't losers of the heresy, Lorekeepers.
Don't you?
Don't
you dare?
Yeah, I would love to see
the greatest moment in a book, and don't you dare undermine any of that. I don't care about you goddamn Ogryns right now. You talk about Torgadon like that, I will drive to where you are, and I will tattoo his name across your eyes.
Then he came back as
Don't. No, that didn't happen.
Don't tell me. Tormageddon.
That didn't happen.
My boy Erebus brought him back.
That didn't happen.
But no, I think it'd be great because, like, once again, even at this point, I believe Ogryns would be very trusting of someone who'd done them a service, and you can almost imagine maybe sort of Imperial Guard recruitment forces would be sort of saying, "Hey, why don't you come with us? Why don't you get off Necromunda? Why don't you go see some more? Why don't you go see some of the galaxy?" I think the Ogryns would probably jump at it.
You reckon the idea of seeing the rest of the galaxy... I'm more inclined to think that it's not necessarily a selfish-driven thing of what does it get for us, but they would understand what it meant to protect their brotherhood. Do you know what I mean? Their community, because their community is what has saved them and separated them from that horrible life that they've been in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely agree. There would be a cadre of Ogryn who would be like, yes, get me off onto another planet, another world. But I think for me, the majority would be saying, how do I protect what I care about? And that's, the Ogryns that follow the Imperial cult would be doing the same. How do I protect what I care about, which is the cult? So an officer says, I need to protect the Cassican behind me, so I form a shield wall, and whoever dies in our shield wall dies, so be it. Or I need to break and breach the enemy defences here, so I will do that because I know breaching this defence will lead to their defeat, will save more of my people. Consequently, that's what the Emperor wants. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where my mindset lies with the Ogryn. It would be, they're almost, without the dirty Tau version of it, it's almost like they are going for the greater good. Like they all, I wouldn't say they see themselves as expendable, but they definitely, like, sacrifice is always on the cards.
Yeah.
Like it's definitely right up there each and every, and it's not like this. It's not like a noble sacrifice of tell my Ogryn mama and papa I died a hero sort of thing. It's more like the sacrifice I have done is the minimum requirement of what was needed. It's just part of my role of what I am to be who I am. So that type of mentality within the communities they form on Necromunda, you could draw that out of them with the right sort of leverage from a certain noble saying, we're going to supply this community with more weapons and we're going to do this, but you need to prove yourself on the battlefield for us as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I get that. Like, I get what you're saying about exploring the galaxy and so forth, but I see them, without attaching too much nobility to the cause, being needed to, you sort of need to leverage them a little bit better than just like, there's something really fun for you to go see. I think once they're in the environment, it becomes fun.
Yeah. Yeah, promise them fun and the fact that they won't be hunted anymore.
Perfect. There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. But for their community as well. Like your
Yeah.
community.
Oh, bring everyone. Let's go. Bring the whole party. Get everyone their favourite Hawaiian shirts. What's Hawaii?
Yeah.
We don't know. All we know is it's got lots of colours.
Yes.
And you get on the ship and we go and
shirts.
eat and drink and fight.
Yeah, definitely sounds like a night out in Scotland. Yes.
Yeah, the Scottish listeners are still going to blame me for that one. Love you, Scotties.
I made it sound good.
Yeah. All right,
Look, I feel like we've covered off all the, I guess, the Imperial side of it. And we've probably talked more about the Astra Militarum in this than we would talk about them in an Astra Militarum podcast. Yeah. But we are very aware that the Ogryn, and when we touched on a little bit with their integration within the Orc forces and so forth, but the big sort of elephant in the room, or Ogryn in the room, is their association with the Chaos Gods as well. Yeah. And we just feel like this isn't the forum for it, because we wanted to cover off who they are, their societies, and what they do. Because once you start to pour in the taint of the Chaos Gods, it really affects what we consider like their ethics and their morals and their motivations and so forth. And all of that changes and becomes highly corrupted. You know what I mean? I feel like I want to do that in another episode, potentially. Whether it be a Chaos episode or...
Are you saying that the Ogryn content is so big it may need a second Ogryn episode?
I'm saying potentially it's very much Ogryn-sized, yes.
Well, yes, we did sort of say that we want to talk about that, but when we talk about the sort of chaos side of it, there's a lot more that we'd want to talk about at the same time. We didn't want to be jamming all of that into one episode, so for anyone wanting to talk about the Chaos Ogryns, Plague Ogryns, all that sort of stuff, Berserkers, it is going to come. It's just not coming right now. But...
yeah.
So before we close off the episode, we will be having our next listener lore episode in the first week of March. So looking at this, this should be coming out, I believe, the 7th of Feb, the Friday. Yes, by the way, we're releasing on Fridays from now on.
Oh yes.
We're releasing on
That's one of
Fridays.
the January updates. Something
Yeah,
that we were
January
working on in
update.
January.
You all remember when we talked about that in that January episode. We will be releasing on a Friday, basically just to give us a little bit more time for the content sort of increase we're looking at. And so if you're listening to this on release date, it is the 7th of February, and you have a month until our next listener lore. We've got a couple of entries that I've read through. We've got a bunch of entries come through so far, but remember, it is about the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard. We want to talk about military police or law and order, whatever sort of theme like that. And yes, a lot of people are under the assumption that I'm going to be using the stories you give me. I'm going to, quote unquote, steal them, take them as my own, and use them as the basis of some of the units and lore that I have for the Necromunda 26 listeners. You could not be any further from the lie. That is almost exactly what I'm going to be doing. I am the teller of tales. I am also the thiever of gang ideas. So
Yes.
I will be taking a bunch of those, hopefully, and putting them into my Necromunda 26th army. And I can't do this without your help. And as we always do, we're going to be making sure that we read out the absolute favourites we get. And we're going to see if we can make some listeners happy with something we can give them. So yes, we will be doing the listener lore in the first week of March. And yeah, Nathan...
Just remember, folks, the Necromunda 26 is our regiment. Your regiment. It's the People's Regiment.
It's the People's Regiment, exactly. Like, where else would allow you to go out and fight for your emperor and your planet and honestly rob the dead? Like, just rob them.
You have the freedom to go out there and take what is left on the battlefield, and that might mean that you're ransacking the squads of other gangs, but so be it.
Honestly, where else could you loot the dead outside of a Black Friday sale?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I've read one or two pieces of the content, the lore that has come through, and I'm very much on board with Sam stealing the ideas because so far some of the stuff has been deep fried gold. So keep it up, get that stuff into us, and yeah, really looking forward to the listener lore episode. I guess we also do like to do a little wrap up or like a final thought on the episode. My final thoughts regarding the Ogryn is if you haven't dabbled in them, and again, we say this all the time, forget the rules, dabble in how to include them into your gang, into your army, whatever the case might be, and why are they there? What purpose has this Ogryn got? You know, and feel free to play around with the ideas that they can understand a sense of freedom within themselves, and what does that mean for that particular Ogryn individual or gang or unit within your army, and how does that express itself? So yeah, if you haven't, add them in. I know I'm definitely building a brand new bodyguard for my my Valhallans. Just one. That's all he needs. It's how I'm going to give him a great coat is going to be interesting. But
doesn't need a great
work
coat.
On that topic.
He's kept warm by the love of the Emperor and a fancy hat.
Yeah, okay, well, he could definitely get an Ushanka. Yes, for sure.
Perfect. And remember, when you make your Ogryns, they are going to fall into the culture of your gang. They're going to fall into the culture of your army. They're going to take on that persona. So model it. I want to see Escher Ogryn with pink mohawks. I want to see Orlok Ogryn in just double denim. I want to see Chaos Cult Ogryns in, like, I don't know, anything that isn't Malal coloured, really. But
I will say the double denim might be a bit far, but yeah, I can handle the Malal Ogryn over the double denim Ogryn.
you leave my Canadian tuxedo out of this, sir. But as always, we are going to finish off this episode and close it out with a quote. And this one here is a little bit long, but I think it really personifies some of the mindset of an Ogryn of the Astra Militarum. Not sure how I got here. Never am. Don't much care. Long as I know who to crump. That's what Ogryns are for. Fight for the Emperor. Die for the Emperor. Good life, long as you're strong. And there's no one stronger than me. Shame about my boss. Tried to save him. Couldn't. Didn't. Won't let it happen again. Inquisitors say we gotta protect this world, so that's what I'm gonna do. Make Emperor proud. Keep me mates alive. Gonna be a good time. And that is an Ogryn Bulgrin serving in the warband of an Inquisitor. And that was our latest episode of the Underhive Lorekeepers podcast. I am Spamiel, and on behalf of the Lorekeeper team, thank you for listening. Please follow us on our social media pages available in the show notes, and don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, review, all of that, preferably on your preferred podcast platform. As always, if you have questions, complaints, corrections, or if you too grew up on a prison planet, decided to become the world's biggest Catachan, and occasionally want to punch an orc in the face, please reach out to us at underhivelorekeepers@gmail.com. Thanks.